Chapter 359. In the giant mirrors above the arena, everyone was seeing Ghost lifting Peter by his neck. Peter mustered the little bit of strength he had in his body to punch Ghost. Pathetic Ghost snickered after getting a punch from Peter. Peter was completely stunned by Ghost. When he first fought Ghost, his movements were slow despite the runes, his fighting technique was sloppy. Plus, his reaction time was way slower. This time, however, Ghost fought like a new person. Peter couldn't even evade his attacks as he was too fast. Moreover, Ghost was able to destroy the runes he placed on the battle stage without sweating a break. It shouldn't be possible, yet somewhere Ghost destroyed them. Without the runes to restrict Ghost's spells and skills, Peter's plan of defeating him took a nosedive. Boom! Suddenly Michael slammed Peter on the floor, almost forming a crater in the battle stage. The force of the slam sent the spear in Peter's hands flying away. The light in Peter's eyes started to dim down due to the broken bones inside him. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Michael flicked his hand as a healing potion appeared in his hand. The fun is just getting started, Peter. He forced the healing potion down Peter's mouth as the internal wounds Peter suffered gradually healed. His pale face became rosy again. Ghost's hand was still around Peter's neck. Before Peter could stand up, he was thrown into the air by Ghost. Because Peter healed up, he was able to balance himself in the middle and landed comfortably on the battle stage. He raised his hand as the spear came flying into his hand. "You said something about my sword skills," with an arrogant smile. Peter saw Ghost unsheath the two swords on his back. The hate Peter had towards Ghost at this point was immeasurable. He had never felt so humiliated in his life. Thousands of people witnessed Ghost beating him mercilessly like he was a weak animal. Michael could have easily broken Peter's limbs and ended the fight in a couple of minutes. Yet, he chose to drag out the fight, which was not his style. He always preferred to end the battle as soon as possible without giving his opponent the time to get lucky. This time he made an exception to the rule because he wanted to show the entire continent what would happen if someone messed with him. Also, beating the crap out of Peter was his way of venting the anger boiling inside him. Every time he saw the blue-haired guy sitting next to the princess, the flashes of Ubra's last moments flashed across his eyes. He never felt such anger like this for a long time. It took everything in him to keep his cool. The last time he lost his cool, he went on a killing rampage, ending all the fellow assassins he trained with under Spectre and even killing the girl he loved. Lightning Dash, Wind Steps. Both of them cast the spells at the same time with their weapons in their hands. The nobles once again leaned forward while the commoners couldn't stay seated. The Wind Steps was an epic class spell that let the caster step into the gaps between realms to teleport. It was similar to a short-distance teleportation spell with quick casting time. The spell was extremely hard to master, and any mishap during the spell would end the caster's life. Those like Darius knew about the spell. They commended Peter for mastering the spell. In a blink of an eye, Peter appeared behind Michael. Cling! Without even turning back, Michael blacked the spear with his sword. The clash of metals produced an ear-piercing sound. The next moment, Michael turned around swinging his sword. Peter managed to block the sword as he expected. Considering spears were not very effective in too short of a distance, Peter jumped back to get some distance between him and Ghost. "Let me show you what a real swordsman can do in a fight against a spearman," as he said. He brushed the swords together. Each time he brushed the swords on each other, it produced sparks of fire. Wrath of Amir. Peter slammed the spear onto the ground. Michael halted his steps, looking at the golden spear trembling violently. Soon, he saw a glistening purple tornado appear out of the spear's tip. The tornado grew bigger and meaner with each passing second. The tornado gradually moved towards Michael. When the people looked at the tornado closer, they could see vague images of spears in the tornado. Why isn't he moving? Ethan worried about his son. Ethan was one of the people who knew which class the spell belonged to, the epic class. Normally these spells would take a long time to cast, yet Peter cast the spell in a few seconds. This was proof of Peter's mastery over spells and runes. Unlike Ethan, Michael didn't worry about the tornado moving towards him. In fact, he was overjoyed. The more powerful spell Peter cast, the more badass points he would receive when walking out of the spells unscathed. What is he doing? Imelda asked with wide eyes, seeing Ghost walking towards the tornado instead of scurrying away from the tornado's path. The black long coat fluttered violently in the air while he was slowly and calmly walking towards the tornado. All the crowd, including the commentators, were speechless. It was too exciting. Under the people's shocked gazes, the tornado finally enveloped Ghost. No one could see his figure inside the tornado. For a few moments, only the howling noise of the tornado could be heard. Maintaining the tornado used Peter's arch energy and strength in his body. After keeping the tornado from fading away for a few minutes, his legs grew weaker by the moment. Still, he maintained the tornado because he wasn't planning to underestimate Ghost again. It was evident that Ghost intentionally hid his true power when they first fought. Peter blamed himself for stupidly falling for his plan. After their initial fight, Peter didn't even take Ghost seriously. Therefore, he didn't form another strategy but came to fight with the same plan he used in their first fight. If he hadn't underestimated Ghost, he would have created new runes to defeat Ghost and wouldn't have gotten his ass kicked. "Hello, Peter." Suddenly, Peter felt a chill running through his spine when he heard a calm voice coming from the tornado. Many people gasped in shock when they saw Ghost stepping out of the tornado, not even a cut on his face. "No, impossible," Peter mumbled as his mind went blank. Granted, Ghost had more cultivation power than him, still it wasn't possible even for a level 10 core formation stage warrior to face the tornado and come out unscathed. Lightning Dash, the smile on Michael's face, disappeared as he cast the spell. In a blink of an eye, he appeared before Peter as Peter raised his spear to defend himself. It was too late as Ghost swung his sword, inflicting a deep cut on his shoulder. Gritting his teeth to fight the pain, Peter swung his spear, but he once again felt pain in his other shoulder. Then on his gut, leg, face, chest, and every place in his body. He couldn't even see Ghost anymore. All he had seen were after images of Ghost swinging his sword. Darius was speechless. Every one of his sword swings was precise, deadly, and elegant beyond words. Regardless of Peter's suffering, Darius didn't want Ghost to stop. On the other hand, Alicia's heart bled seeing her brother getting flayed alive. It was true that the healing array kept Peter alive, but it didn't stop Ghost from inflicting almost 100 cuts. Peter's armor had already fallen off as Ghost painted Peter red in blood. "Bastard!" Alicia couldn't hold back her anger anymore as she banged the seat's arm. Peter fell to the ground, losing all his strength due to the blood loss. Ghost was merciless. He never gave Peter the chance to utter the words "I surrender." Not that Peter would surrender. Many expected Ghost to give him a chance. Even Claire frowned seeing Ghost kicking Peter in the gut while cutting him mercilessly. Sometimes Ghost freaked her out with his ruthlessness. "Stop!" Finally, Alicia's anger exploded. Her thunderous voice closed all the mutterings and drew the attention of the crowd, including the commentators, the VIP guests, and Ghost himself. Michael put one foot on Peter's blood-soaked face. Seeing Alicia interrupting the battle, the tournament committee guards rushed to her before she could further do something stupid. "Look, your sister is screaming up there?" Michael giggled before stomping Peter's face yet again. "I will kill you," Alicia screamed. Norvin was stunned to see her lose her patience like this. She had never been good at showing her emotions, but now, after seeing her brother getting beaten like this, she seemed to have lost her mind. "You should stop her from doing something stupid." Michael looked at the coordinators floating above him and said, "Oh, too much blood." While some of the coordinators were flying in the direction of Alicia, Michael turned his focus back to Peter. He smiled at the pool of blood under Peter. "Let's mop the blood, shall we?" Everyone felt a chill as they heard Michael. Soon, many people's eyes went wide. He grabbed Peter's right leg and lifted him up in the air before wiping the blood using Peter's body like a mop. "Bastard!" Alicia's scream reverberated the arena. However, before she could jump down from the pavilion to the battle stage, the coordinators sent an invisible force field to prevent her from doing so. If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 360. The coordinators were ready to come down to the battle stage to end the battle. It was obvious at this point that there is no way Peter could defeat him. The healing array was the only thing that kept him alive. Alicia was banging the invisible force field erupted in front of her. She saw Ghost squatting down in front of her almost dead brother. Peter couldn't clearly see Ghost's face with his blurry vision, but he could somewhat hear his words. "The next time you think about fighting me, don't." Michael ran his fingers across Peter's bloody face with a devilish grin. "Besides, you're going to be pretty busy with the Guardians after patting Peter's bloody face." He stood up. The coordinators rushed to the battle stage. One of the coordinators lifted Peter's hand and let go. Peter did not show any resistance as the hand dropped to the ground 3 times. Knockout? Ghost wins. The Sunrise Sect Pavilion erupted in cheers after hearing the coordinators. However, compared to before, the cheers were less thunderous. Many were in shock seeing the ruthlessness of Ghost. None of the participants were as brutal and merciless as Ghost. Many participants shuddered to even get on the battle stage with him. Even the disciples of the Sunrise Sect shivered. Their respect and worship towards Ghost were slowly turning into fear. On his way towards the battle stage's center, he swung the 2 swords as the blood of Peter splattered on the ground. After unsheathing his swords, he flicked his wrist as a blue crystal appeared in his hand. Standing on another VIP pavilion, Peyton and Zanali saw Ghost's eyes land on them. "Is he looking at us?" Zanali asked Peyton. Soon his gaze turned to Darius. "Put this on the screen. The people and the Guardians should see this." Michael sent the crystal floating towards Darius. Everyone had a look of wonder on their faces. They were curious to see what was in the crystal. Since Ghost accused Peter of being the young master, few expected some kind of evidence in the crystal to prove Ghost's claim. Alicia's heart was beating faster and faster. She stopped banging the force field and stared at the crystal floating towards Darius. "I am still in shock, but it seems like I have to prepare for another," Ishihara commented. "This has gone from competition to a frickin' bloodbath." His ruthlessness is hard to take in. James Hall furrowed his brow. He had been a commentator for many years, yet never saw such a bloodthirsty individual as Ghost. It felt like Ghost actually enjoyed hurting others and bathing in blood. In simple words, James thought of him as a devil in a human form. Granted, there were many rogue cultivators who did more cruel things than Ghost, but it was something different in Ghost. James Hall deemed Ghost as a person who is capable of doing anything to his foes. While the crystal was floating towards Darius, Peyton and Zanali stared at coordinators dragging Peter from the battle stage to the infirmary. When Ghost first rejected their offer to join the Guardians, Peyton was shocked and felt mad at him. However, after seeing his actions in the tournament, she was glad he rejected their offer because it was evident he was not Guardian material. He even seemed like a borderline psychopath who has a thirst for blood and violence. Unlike many Guardians, including the Alpha Guardian, hadn't deemed Ghost as a threat to them. Peyton disagreed with them. The Guardians were too mingled in politics as they strayed away from their true goals: catching criminals and bringing order to the world. As far as Peyton was concerned, Ghost was just as dangerous as Lucifer or even more. He was forging alliances with powerful families, making friends and building his empire. At this moment of time, he didn't seem like a threat to the Guardians, except at this speed, he would become a threat in a couple of decades. If Noah said he's a threat, they might have listened, Peyton told herself. "He reminds me of my sister," Zanali said. Peyton sensed a hint of sadness in her voice. It was not only because her sister went missing a year ago, it was also because someone in Nagaland poisoned her father. If it wasn't for Noah, he would have already died. To dispel the poison in her father's body, Noah went to one of the dangerous places in the world, the Fire Realm. Zanali's mother ordered Zanali not to go to the Fire Realm with Noah. Some part of Peyton wanted Noah to die in the Fire Realm. She wanted everything to go back to how it was before Noah joined the Guardians. Peyton's train of thought was interrupted by Zanali's words. "How so?" Peyton asked. She too enjoyed such needless bloodshed. She actually enjoyed making others suffer, including her own family. Zanali's eyes watered, thinking about her father on the verge of death and Gaia. "It's not like you and your family is completely blameless in Gaia's matter, Zanali. For a moment Zanali couldn't believe what she just heard from Peyton. She had never talked to her like this before. Peyton's subconscious anger towards Noah got redirected towards Zanali. Peyton, what did you mean by that? Nothing. Peyton waved her hand, but Zanali didn't let go. You obviously have something to tell me, so tell me, Peyton. You think we were to blame for what my sister did? Zanali's voice didn't sound like she was angry but glum and concerned. Peyton sighed, realizing her impulse got the better of her. Your father took the throne which was rightfully hers and decided to give it to you instead, Zanali. So anyone in your sister's place would feel betrayed. Her words yet again shocked Zanali. She thought Peyton understood her, but Zanali realized she thought wrong. I never wanted that throne, Peyton. She pushed me to take the throne. You know why? If she was on the throne, there would be no need for prisons. She would play the judge, jury, and executioner just like her mother. My sister always blamed me and my mother for the rising crime rate in Nagaland and said if she or her mother was on the throne, it wouldn't be the case. Zanali paused for a second, seeing Ghost leave the battle stage. Darius and some others were meddling with the crystal, because she or her mother would have killed the accused without a fair trial. You don't know how many people were sentenced to death by her mother without any evidence to prove them absolutely guilty. She would go with her gut feeling. Of course, no criminals, no prisons, no high crime rate. There might have been hundreds of innocents who were said guilty by her mother. Under her rule, my people lived in fear. Just like her mother, Gaia would have been a dictator. I took the throne because I didn't want my people to live in fear. Peyton knew Zanali was right, but only partially right. Gaia's mother was indeed a dictator, but under her rule, Nagaland thrived. It was one of the most powerful kingdoms. Under Gaia's father and Zanali's mother's rule, the kingdom had grown weak. But everyone was getting a fair trial under the new rulers. Of course, each case would drag and waste resources. Still, Zanali and her mother advocated a fair trial for everyone without any compromises. This was one of the reasons the kingdom had grown weak. Under Gaia's mother's rule, resources were spent to develop military power. Under Zanali's mother's rule, resources were spent helping war-torn countries, trials, offering refuge to refugees, and paying off debts they got to help other kingdoms. Both queens had done good and bad. Some favored Gaia's mother, while some favored Zanali's mother. Peyton didn't talk about who's right and who's wrong. In fact, she had never judged Zanali's actions until now. I will do what's best for my people. And Gaia was the opposite of best. If she hates me for caring about my people, so be it. Nagaland would never be war-hungry as it once was. Peyton could see the resolve in Zanali's eyes. Peyton was glad that her sister was not what she used to be anymore. Only a few individuals could be compared with Gaia in terms of monstrous cultivation talent. Gaia was on the surveillance list of guardians for a reason. Look, suddenly people in the same pavilion as Peyton and Zanali shouted, looking at the giant mirrors. They both looked at the mirror to see a dark room lit with nothing but a few lanterns appeared in the mirror. The arena became silent. Everyone's gaze was on the mirror. After a few moments, they saw a figure dressed in black walking into the darkroom. The bright orange light coming from the lanterns illuminated the book racks, the round table in the room's center, as well as the line of armor stands. The people were staring at the figure's back before the figure slowly turned back. Looking at the figure's armor, Peyton was positive that this was the same figure that many noble youngsters saw when the young master ambushed them. It can't be him, right? Imelda asked Norvin, who was sitting on her shoulder. The golden Babaru looked worried. He desperately needed Noah here to somehow find a way to fix the mess if the young master turned out to be Alicia's brother. I hope not, Norvin said. Soon after the words left his mouth, he saw the black figure in the mirror take off the hood covering his face. No, Alicia's legs turned to jelly when she saw the figure's face. It was her brother, Peter Stone. Norvin saw Peyton and Zanali leaving their seats. He could guess they were going to make sure Peter stays in their sight until he gets healed enough to visit the guild. Bastard, Norvin cursed Ghost. From this moment onwards, Peter's life would not be what it used to be. The Guardians and the Church would make his life a living hell by investigations and trials. If Peter was proven guilty, that would be the end of his freedom, or worse, he would be exiled to the southern continent. Ghost just utterly destroyed Peter's life. For a private and prideful person such as Peter, what he did was worse than killing. If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 361. Having turned Peter's life upside down for attacking him, Ghost was honing his fighting skills back in his room. After Layla's visit, the mirror in his room was gone. He didn't buy a new mirror but bought a few punching bags and freakishly sturdy Wing Chun. The punching bags were laying on the ground, broken and scattered. The punching bags contained pieces of stones that were similar to granite on Earth. Still, they were no match for Michael's anger. The anger wasn't toward Peter but Wuxia. Ever since he saw Calvin Howard, the representative of Wuxia, he was burning with fury. Chuck, 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 chuck. His punches to the Wing Chun became more and more violent as the wooden dummy began to vibrate violently despite its sturdiness. He never even used any arch energy to power his punches, he just used raw strength. Thusians, Victoria Barnes, Arch, chuck, 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 chuck. He violently punched the Wing Chun as the wooden dummy began to form cracks. Soon, pieces of wood crumbled down. After the Wing Chun lost its shape, his punches became more frantic. They contained no techniques or finance, just random frantic punches. Arg! Boom! Finally, Michael Roundhouse kicked the wooden dummy as it exploded into nothing but splinters. There are many ways to destroy an enemy. The first, forgiveness. Elder Wright's words sounded in his mind. They don't deserve it. When I'm done with Wuxia, there won't be any signs that there was a kingdom called Wuxia. I am gonna massacre them. Michael breathed heavily. He sweated as he was inside an oven in anger. Knock! Knock! Master Ghost! Michael heard Ricky's voice coming from the other side of the door. What is it? Michael tried to sound calm, yet it was possible Ricky might have sensed the anger in his voice. There is someone who wants to meet you. That someone have a name? Michael wiped off the sweat before using arch energy to clean himself. Lord Calvin Howard, Master Ghost. The moment Michael heard the name, his calmed anger exploded in his heat yet again. He clenched his fist as he began to shiver. Send him in. His brain overpowered the anger in his heart. Yes, Master Ghost. Ricky left the area to bring Calvin to the room, while Michael entered the system's interface to buy a couple of sofas. He knew this was not the time to be impulsive and make an enemy out of Calvin. Hence he bought furniture for Calvin to sit on instead of beating the crap out of him. Michael then put on V-neck black long sleeves and rolled up the sleeves to his elbows. He plunged into the sofa, giving some rest to his body. After waiting for 5 minutes, Michael heard loud footsteps and metal clanking sounds. Soon, the door opened to reveal Ricky and a blue-haired youngster who had a feminine feel to him. He walked towards Michael with a wide grin. He even walked like a female while fanning his face. Ghost, it's a pleasure to meet you up close. Michael stood up and shook Calvin's hands. It felt like he was shaking a girl's hand. It was so soft. Pleasure is all mine. Lord Calvin. Michael gestured at Calvin to take a seat in front of him. It took an immense amount of effort to keep his anger contained. Ah, call me Calvin. Lord title makes me feel old. Calvin pouted. Michael couldn't help imagining dashed at him, ripping off his throat with his bare hands and showing it back into his mouth. He was starting to get really creative. Calvin, it is. Michael let out a friendly smile despite the burning rage in his heart. I liked what you've been doing in the competition so far. Letting everyone know you're not to be messed with. That's how the enemies should be dealt with. Despite the feminine look, gentle voice, and ladylike softness, Michael could see the cold murdered hiding within Calvin. Kill one enemy. I have rooted out one enemy. Torture and destroy one in front of the world. I have rooted out many. Michael said. You can leave the room now. Ricky. Michael sent Ricky outside with a wave. Calvin's armored escort remained outside without getting inside the room. It was obvious Calvin had no idea who Michael really is. If he had seen Abras before, Calvin would have recognized him by now. Still, this meeting reminded Michael to change his appearance. Although Michael looked way different than he did when he first got Abras' body, he decided to buy something from the system that would quickly change his face when needed. I heard you travel a lot and love making new friends. Have you ever visited Thusia? Calvin asked. I haven't got the pleasure yet, but I heard it's a beautiful kingdom. And powerful. Calvin smiled, but the pride and arrogance were pretty visible in his eyes. Michael sneered inside. They weren't powerful before the king pimped his daughter to Abras, betrayed him, and acquired the cosmic stream. For others, Thusia was waging war on nearby kingdoms and forging alliances with powerful organizations to defend themselves from invasion. That was the story Maxim Barnes, the king of Thusia, spinning. However, Michael knew the truth. They were waging war to make sure none could take the cosmic stream from them or know the existence of the cosmic stream. People like Lord Information would eventually sniff out the existence of the cosmic stream if Thusia remained doing nothing. The Thusian king was gambling with the cosmic stream to ensure the future of Thusia. Many would become suspicious if Thusia grew powerful in a short amount of time, but if they waged war and swallowed nearby kingdoms, people would think winning wars was the reason for the rise to power. If Michael's guess was right, only a small group of people in Thusia would know about the cosmic stream's existence, and those few would be insanely powerful. The Void event that took away people's ability to see someone's cultivation level added extra protection to them. They didn't need to worry about powers like the Guardian Guild questioning how they suddenly became so powerful. I'm really surprised to see a representative of Thusia here, Calvin. I mean, the ongoing wars might keep your schedule filled, right? Michael asked without showing a shred of his true emotions on his face. He sounded like he's really surprised to see Calvin here. It's a messy business, but Thusia won't back down to war-hungry kingdoms. In fact, we are winning the wars in all directions. Is that so? Michael nodded, pretending he doesn't know this. The book he bought from Lord Information might not contain information about Cosmic Stream, but it contained everything that's happening in the world right now and the rumors surrounding each kingdom. Unlike Calvin said, Thusia wasn't just winning, they were destroying kingdoms. According to the rumors, Thusia was looking to shift its capital to the Azer continent and announce itself as an empire soon. Despite our victory in the wars, His Majesty Maxim Barnes has ordered his subordinates to strengthen the kingdom further, so we won't be vulnerable to wars in the future. Calvin paused for a moment to see the reaction on Ghost's face. After seeing Ghost still listening to him with curiosity, Calvin continued, part of our strategy was getting new talents and self-sustaining our kingdom. By self-sustaining, do you mean starting your own guilds? Michael read something about Thusia's starting their own merchant guild from Olivia's father. Connecting that with Calvin's words, he could guess where is this going. Exactly, and that's why I am here. We want you to offer the guild leader position of Tag, Thusian Alchemist's Guild. This time, Michael's brows raised up in genuine surprise. He expected Calvin to offer some shitty position, but never expected him to offer the position of guild leader. Like a spider web, new plans to get revenge formed in Michael's mind. Man of your caliber should be leading a guild, not competing in silly competitions to prove your worth. Calvin rolled his eyes. It was evident he was talking about the Alchemist's Guild and the upcoming alchemist competition organized by them. Michael didn't need Calvin to tell him what those old alchemists did was rude and insolent. They should have invited him to be the judge of the competition, except they invited him to compete in the competition. Since Michael was hiding the fact that he's the #1 alchemist in Elon, Gabriel could think of judging him. But what about the rest of the guild? There wasn't a single person in that alchemy guild to judge him. I can't say I'm not tempted, but I need to know more about this before making my decision. Michael already decided to take on the position, yet still didn't want to seem like he's too quick to take the job. I did my research, Ghost. You value your freedom and hate being tied to a place. That was why you rejected the Guardians, right? Michael nodded as Calvin continued. We are still in the first phase of building the guild. Wherever we build the guild, you don't have to stay there 24/7. You will be the guild's leader, appearing only to make important decisions. Day-to-day activities and small matters will be taken care of by the elders and your assistants if you choose to have. Seeing the interested look on Ghost's face, Calvin let out a grin, showing his pure white sparkling teeth. If you choose to take the position, you will be granted access to the herbal garden we are planning to build, 20 million gold coins a month, and the banner of Kingdom Thusia as a sign of friendship and protection. and many other benefits. Calvin could see the temptation in Ghost's eyes. Hook, line, sink. Too easy, Calvin thought to himself. Anyone with half a brain could see Ghost would take this offer by seeing the look on his face. Calvin was an expert in acquiring talents for Wuxia. Therefore he could tell when someone is thinking about taking the offer. However, he had no idea that it was not a fish that bit his hook but a bloodthirsty shark. If you like this chapter, please comment, send power stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 362. After leaving the safe house, Gaia and Noah were following a youngster named Eric, a fellow guardian friend of Noah. Gaia was silently following the two of them as Eric seemed to know more about the places and routes in Fire Realm than Noah and Gaia combined. Guardian Eric? Where are Oscar and the other men? It's very easy to find them in the outer perimeter. Murdoch has occupied our previous stronghold, and I'm guessing he's keeping Oscar and men there. Let me lead you there quietly, Eric said. Why are we wasting our time looking for this Oscar person? Gaia asked after they entered a dark alley. I don't leave friends behind, Noah said. Speaking of friends, Noah couldn't help thinking of Abel. It had been almost a year since Abel went missing inside the Nether Realm. Noah had a feeling that Abel is not alive. Still, Noah never gave up the search. He was still researching about opening a mini portal to the Nether Realm and going searching for Abel. If Abel was alive, Noah wanted to rescue him. If not, he wanted answers to what happened to Abel. Just make it quick, Gaia sighed. She could tell by looking into Noah's eyes that there's no stopping him. Considering her chance of killing the five-headed serpent was high with Noah, she stuck with him instead of parting ways. More than that, she had a feeling that Noah was hiding something crucial and she wanted to know what. They followed Eric as they began rushing towards the stronghold. There was no distinct difference between night and day in Inferno Hell, as there was no sun or moon, and the skies had the same crimson color all day long. It was a depressing sight. Soon after, Eric led Noah and Gaia to a manor. The manor wasn't huge, but there was a historical feeling to it. There is a secret chamber in the manor, and if my guess is correct, they should be keeping Oscar in that secret chamber. I know of an entrance behind the secret chamber. We can enter directly from there. Let's not alert Murdoch and his men. Let's first get our men out. Otherwise, once we engage in a battle, Oscar and the other men might become collateral, Eric said. It seemed like Eric wanted to avoid any battles in Gaia's eyes. Behind the manor, a 7-foot beast that had the body of a dog and the head of an eagle and a pair of blood-red eyes was laying in front of the entrance to the secret chamber. It was at the level 7 core formation stage. This demon beast was caught by Murdoch. He's using it to guard the door, Eric informed them in a husky voice. The trio stood behind a boulder and looked around the manor to gauge the security. Can you shoot it from here? Noah asked Gaia. She wanted to be on the way to hunt the five-headed serpent, not help some random humans. Yet since she might need his help defeating the serpent, she sighed and took out her bow. She knocked an arrow that had a green tip on the bow. The moment she fired the arrow, it soared through the air like a bullet before piercing through right between the beast's two eyes. Its body frantically twitched for a few moments before its body stopped moving completely. Its blood was still oozing out of the wound, but not even a single sound was made. Soon the trio opened up the narrow back door and snuck in. Behind the door, there was a tunnel that led downwards. It was pretty dark inside. At the end of the tunnel, there was an underground secret chamber. Not long after they walked in, Noah began hearing some horrible screams from the secret chamber. The screams didn't seem to stop, and it really gave them an eerie feeling. It wasn't hard for them to imagine what kind of pain the men inside were experiencing. It's Oscar. Gaia saw Noah's expression become stern. He had heard Oscar's voice from the screams just now. He couldn't bear it any longer, and his killing intent was unleashed from his body. Right now, inside the underground secret chamber. This was a huge secret chamber, and cruel torturing was being carried out right now. It was a horrible scene. Right in the middle of the secret chamber, 7 men with naked upper bodies were tied onto some iron poles. Their bodies were covered with blood, Their skin was split and flesh broke forth. Horrible scars could be seen everywhere, and blood kept leaking out from their terrible wounds. Right in front of them, a luxuriously dressed adult man was sitting on a comfy chair, pleasantly watching the ongoing torturing as if he was viewing the nicest scenery. "Bastard! Kill us now if you dare! Kill us now!" A young man in his mid-20s roared out. He kept spitting out blood as he let out terrible roars. He had the most wounds and scars on his body, and his vision was blurring. Obviously, even with his strong mentality and body, he was going to pass out after going through such cruel torture for a long period of time. This man was Oscar. "You want me to kill you? Not that simple. You have offended young Master Murdoch, and that is a crime that deserves eternal torture. Men, give me something more explosive," the adult man said. There were 5 of Murdoch's men in the secret chamber, but they were only at core formation level 2. When they heard the man's words, a ferocious smile emerged on all their faces. One of them took out a palm-sized tube. Then he walked up to Oscar and opened the tube. Immediately, a muddish-brown snake swam out from it. The snake sent forth a pungent smell which told that it carried a deadly poison. "Oscar, this is a sand rattler. I think you have heard of it before," the man said with a hideous smile on his face. After that, he placed the poisonous snake on Oscar's body. When the snake smelled the blood, it immediately went towards one of the wounds on Oscar's body and tried its best to penetrate itself into his wound. Even the toughest men wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of pain. Oscar instantly let out a terrifying cry. A sizzling sound could be heard from his body, and his skin quickly turned into an emerald color. The pain coming from the corrosion was not something ordinary people could imagine. At the same time, terrifying screams once again sounded out throughout the entire secret chamber. "I can't take it anymore." Someone let out a painful shout and was completely silent afterward. The deadly poison from the sand rattler was not something anybody could resist. Besides, all of them were severely injured. The pain they were experiencing was unimaginable. "Ha ha ha!" The man who was sitting in the chair let out a burst of evil laughter, as if this kind of creepy scream was the most beautiful melody in this world. The pleasant feeling brought to him by torturing people could really satisfy his twisted mind, and he had learned all this from Murdoch. Right at this moment, 3 figures appeared in the secret chamber. When Noah looked at Oscar, flames of fury exploded forth in his eyes, and he was unable to restrain his anger any longer. "Who are you?" When the man saw the uninvited guests, his expression immediately became cold. The man who was going returned the favor. Noah's body swayed, and he arrived in front of the man in an instant. He clenched his palm onto the man's throat, causing the man to feel like there was a gigantic mountain pressing him, making it so that he couldn't even breathe properly. "Eric, capture all these men, but do not kill them," Noah ordered. "Understood," Eric replied as he immediately dashed forwards. The 5 warriors were no match for Eric. They were pressed onto the ground in an instant. "Oscar!" Eric walked up to Oscar and hurriedly broke the iron chains on his body. Then he helped him down. "Eric, what are you doing here?" Oscar kept throwing up blood as he spoke. His life force was getting weaker and weaker. "Oscar, look who is here," Eric said, pointing his finger at Noah. Noah threw the man onto the floor as he hit the floor with a loud thud sound. Noah then walked up to Oscar. "Oscar, I'm here to rescue you. Let's get you somewhere safe, buddy," Noah said with a smile on his face. "Noah, it really is you?" Cough, cough. When Oscar saw that Noah had come to his rescue, a joyful expression emerged on his face. But he had no idea why Noah had come to Ifire Realm or why he was with Eric. "Don't speak right now." Noah placed his palm onto Oscar's body. With a flick of his wrist, he created a beam of light around his palm and sucked out all the deadly poisons in Oscar's body. After that, Noah did the same to the others. Witnessing this, Eric was stunned once again. It was a deadly poison, and Noah had absorbed it all into his body, and he was still not affected by it. This was really frightening. Oscar let out another horrible cry. Then he passed out instantly. When a man was relieved from a long, tense situation, he would immediately pass out. Noah. Oscar's condition is really serious. He needs a healer, Eric said. He glanced at the rest of the men. They were in a worse condition than Oscar. Gaia couldn't help wondering why Murdoch's men tortured them instead of just killing them. This made her curious. Humph. They will pay for what they did to you and your men, Oscar. Noah. Gaia heard Oscar, who was lying on the ground, barely keeping his eyes open, speak Noah's name. Oscar moved his right hand towards Noah as Gaia noticed a small glimmer inside Oscar's forearm. The key. Take it. Gaia saw a vague shape of a 3-inch key appear in Oscar's forearm before the light moved into Noah's arm and disappeared. After the energy key came into his body, Noah heard his mentor's voice in his head. With this key, we are one step closer to reviving the elders. Noah. The elders Andreas mentioned were not some run-of-the-mill elders. They were the ones who destroyed the Order of Death 3,000 years ago. The elites of Supreme Guardian. If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 363. While Noah was helping injured Oscar get back to his feet, Gaia heard footsteps. She slowly moved into the dark corner of the room, not to avoid a battle, but to see what else Noah could do. You have no idea what you've done. You're dead. Few of the men Eric captured muttered. Eric did a number on them by breaking several bones, including the jaw. Hence, they had a hard time talking. You're simply seeking death by killing the men in my stronghold. Boom! Right at this moment, a loud shout sounded out from afar as the room's door exploded into bits and pieces. The next moment, a figure emerged through the dust produced by the door. The man who stepped into the torture room was a man in his early 30s. He had an oval-shaped face like the full moon with 2 round eyes, as though someone put eggs in his head instead of eyes. His body was draped in blood-red robes that swept the ground as he walked. One would expect a man capable of such cruelty would look cruel too, yet this man looked gentle as a flower. However, standing in the dark corner, Gaia could see the murderous intent in his eyes. Eyes were said to be the windows to one's soul. She could see his cruel soul through his bloodshot eyes. Young master! One of the men apprehended by Eric looked at Murdoch as if he had just found his savior. Their faces brightened up immediately. They had witnessed Murdoch's strength before, and they knew that no matter how strong the young man in front of him was, there was no way he would be a match for Murdoch. After all, Murdoch was a core formation level 8 cultivator, while Noah was just at the core formation level 2. Murdoch turned around, looking at the dead bodies scattered across the place. Blood was still leaking out from many of his subordinates. In an instant, fury filled his eyes. You did all this? Murdoch stared angrily at Noah. Noah didn't answer Murdoch's question. Instead, Noah just stared at him with a clenched fist. So you are Murdoch? Noah asked as he threw an examining look onto Murdoch. Young master, these guys are guardians. They ambushed us like cowards. They are. The man who tortured Oscar was called Kai. He had a frightened expression on his face, and he was unable to pull himself out of his panicked state. He couldn't say he and his men were beaten up by 2 youngsters in a couple of seconds. Humph! I will deal with you weaklings later. I have these 2 guardians to torture and kill. Murdoch let out a cold snort. It wasn't easy to cultivate a group of men in Hell City. All these men had pledged loyalty to him and worked under his command. He would always send them to hunt for monsters in the depths of Fire Realm, and he would be able to get a share of their harvest. Put it this way, as long as he had a group of men working for him, he would be able to enjoy good wealth and benefits without doing anything himself. In Fire Realm, monster cores were the currency. The more people he had working for him, the more monster cores he would get. He accumulated an amassed amount of monster cores over the years. Hence, he was living a lavish life in Fire Realm. This was why he never left 4 Realm, even though he had every chance to leave this place. Now, all his men had been injured and apprehended by guardians in such a short period of time. This was no different than messing with his life in Fire Realm. Therefore, Murdoch had every right to be pissed off. Murdoch, a genius from Aragoth who turned into a warlord. Quite a career change. But too bad, you've offended someone you shouldn't have. You hurt my friend, you messed with a guardian. Today, they'll bring my friend justice. And that's the reason why I want to throw everyone in this stronghold into the deepest dungeons of the Guardian Guild. Except you. Noah slowly walked forwards with his eyes locked on Murdoch. You will regret messing with a guardian until the end of your days, Noah said without hiding the cold murderous intent in his heart. Gaia was watching the scene unfold from the dark corner. To this moment, Murdoch was unaware of her existence in the room. As far as he was concerned, he only had 2 guardians to deal with. Don't think I don't know why he's here. Once I sell the information I know along with him, I'm gonna be freaking rich everywhere. Murdoch burst into laughter without giving a damn about Noah's threat. Only place you're gonna sell any information to is the prison you're going. Noah shrugged. He remained standing in the same spot. Gaia saw Murdoch flicking his wrist as a round-shaped lock that glowed in a dark light appeared in his hand. There were numerous mystical symbols carved onto the lock itself. She looked closer to see the symbols were actually patterns that resembled ancient beasts. Flaming gorilla, come out now. Murdoch suddenly shouted out loudly as he yanked the lock. Ding-ling. The black lock vibrated violently before letting out a dinging sound. In a blink of an eye, a ground-shaking roar suddenly sounded out from the depths of the stronghold. After that, a flaming figure suddenly jumped out of the lock. It was a gorilla with a body that looked made of volcanic stones, and its entire body was emitting a flaming red light. The fire ape was over 10 meters tall, and it resembled King Kong. When the fire ape saw Murdoch, an intense hatred emerged in its eyes. But when it saw the black lock in his hand, the intense hatred was turned into fear and meekness. The fire ape let out an angry roar as it descended from the skies. It slammed into the ground with massive force, causing an explosion to sound out, the entire stronghold to shake, and countless cracks to appear on the ground. It unleashed tremendous arch energy combined with scorching flames, enough to send fear deep into one's heart. Guardian Noah, be careful, this is a flaming gorilla. It's a bloody level 10 core formation stage beast. I don't know how Murdoch managed to make this flaming gorilla obey his command. That thing somehow makes him control the wild beasts. Eric's expression changed, and without any hesitation, he explained to Noah. Normally, ancient beasts all had violent tempers, and considered humans their mortal enemies or simply food, even more so for beasts who had broken through to the core formation stage. All of them had their own feelings of pride and dignity, and they would rather die than be controlled by a human. This flaming gorilla had reached level 10 of the core formation stage and just a few months of cultivation away from breaking through to the core strengthening stage, yet it was still being controlled by Murdoch. Gaia was both intrigued and confused. Looking at the lock made Gaia feel something wired. It was like the lock was pulling her close and commanding her to get close. That's a demonic beast tamer. It took Gaia a few seconds to recognize the lock. She had read about this artifact before but never had the chance to see one until now. According to the text she read, these locks were forged by a 6-star human blacksmith who had deep hatred towards other races. He forged the locks to tame and enslave anyone except a human. The 7 locks were said to be lost in time except she found one today. Murdoch smiled as he raised the demonic beast tamer in his hand and waved it towards the flaming gorilla. Then he gave out an order. Flaming gorilla, kill this man for me. Murdoch pointed at Noah. Roar. The flaming gorilla was furious, and flames were shooting out from its eyes. As a beast grew up in the fire realm, it had its own pride and dignity. That's why it felt extremely enraged upon being controlled by a human. However, because of the demonic beast tamer, it was forced to obey Murdoch's command. The appearance of Noah had given it a target to release its anger on. It wanted to vent all its anger on Noah. Bang! The flaming gorilla punched a huge hole in the ground. Then it jumped into the air, forcefully throwing its majestic body, which was covered in scorching flames, toward Noah. Eric's expression changed dramatically. With his cultivation level, he could handle a fire core formation level 2 or 3 warriors, but not a level 10 beast like the flaming gorilla. A brutal opponent like this was really frightening. Pathetic, Noah snickered. Despite the flaming gorilla that's flying towards him in rage, he remained calm. It reminded Gaia of Ghost. Light range, Noah calmly uttered the two words as Gaia saw the torture room suddenly gets brighter and brighter. The flaming gorilla stopped rampaging towards Noah as it started to feel threatened by the human in front of it. Release! Instead of unsheathing his words, Noah just raised his finger towards the lock and shouted. The very next moment, a bolt of bright light appeared out of Noah's finger. The light bolt soared through the gorilla without harming it, but when it touched the lock trembled. What the? Murdoch was stunned to see the lock trembling in his hand like never before. In a few seconds, the lock exploded into tiny bits and pieces. The very next moment, a vortex appeared in the room that pulled the flaming gorilla into it. The flaming gorilla let out shrill cries. All of its furs were standing up. It tried to run away from the pulling force, yet its efforts were in vain because, in a few seconds, the flaming gorilla disappeared from the room into the vortex. The blast force produced by the destruction of the lock sent Murdoch flying into the wall behind him. "Young master!" Murdoch's men shouted. "Arg cough!" Murdoch coughed up thick blood while Noah walked towards him. Murdoch could vaguely see Noah through his blurry vision. He tried to stand up, but he failed to do so due to internal wounds. Gaia watched Noah putting his hand on Murdoch's head. "Break!" If Ghost was here, he would have killed Murdoch by now. Gaia knew that. However, Noah didn't seem to be interested in killing Murdoch. He just put his hand on Murdoch's head as a bright light enveloped Murdoch in a blink of an eye. Gaia's eyes widened in shock, seeing Murdoch's cultivation level gradually becoming lower and lower. In a few minutes, Murdoch hit rock bottom as he became a commoner. "He crippled him," Gaia muttered in shock because it didn't seem like typical crippling. Rather, it seemed like he locked away Murdoch's ability to cultivate or use arch energy completely. If you like this chapter, please comment, send power stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 364. When the commentators and the VIP guests returned to their seats, the sky was decorated with colorful fireworks. They painted the sky as though each firework was a master artist. The fireworks exploded into all kinds of shapes such as dragons, birds, lions, dancing men, and finally, the name Ghost. The Sunrise Sect Pavilion erupted into cheers when they saw the name Ghost occupy all the sky above them. Nightmare flew straight into the air, decorating the golden words with his crimson-red dragon breath. The fireworks weren't arranged by Ghost or anyone he knew. On the contrary, it was arranged by people he never knew, the merchants and the tournament committee. Layla was looking at the sky as the flashes of light reflected in her beautifully crafted hazel eyes. "Welcome to the quarter-final, ladies and gentlemen." Looking at the sky, Darius snapped as all the fireworks merged to form the words quarter-final. As usual, we will go through the rules and regulations. Just like the third round, participants can use whatever is necessary to defeat their opponent. Each battle will be one-on-one. The judges and the guests will score the battle according to how long the battle lasted, how the battle ended as if it was a knockout or surrender, and the 5 winners will be ranked according to their total score. The one with the least score will be eliminated and the first 4 will go to the semi-final. Since Miss Selena withdrew from the tournament for personal reasons, we will select a random participant among the 9 and send him or her directly to the semi-final, Ishihara said. The commoners sighed hearing the news, but the nobles did not seem surprised. They expected Selena to leave the tournament. Everyone knew it wouldn't have been her choice. Rather, her family forced her to withdraw from the competition instead of facing Ghost and ended up being killed or worse. Although there were only 1 of 5 chances for Selena to end up facing Ghost, her family didn't want to take the risk. Soon, the giant mirror broadcasted all the 9 participants' figures as each figure had a color coin beside them. For instance, Andrews had the color gold coin while Paul Oswin had a blue coin. 9 participants were assigned 9 coins. When the mirrors broadcasted Michael's figure, the entire arena once again let out their thunderous cheers. Coincidentally or intentionally, he was assigned a black coin. Under the crowd's excited gazes, 9 bright orbs emerged from the battle stage. In a few seconds, The bright light faded away to reveal the palm-sized coins. Her Royal Highness Catherine would pick the lucky participant who will go to the semi-final without competing in the quarter-final. He or she will also be safe from the elimination, James Hall said. While the coins were floating in a circle, one of the coordinators landed before the coins with a wooden box in his hand. He picked the coins one by one and put them into the wooden box. The coordinator then flew towards the stage where the princess was sitting alongside the king and the other VIPs. "Who do you think will get the lucky chance, guys?" Ishihara asked. "It's luck, Ishihara. We can't predict luck," James Hall said while the coordinator was flying towards the princess. "Some would call it luck, some would call it fate," Darius said in his rough voice. The arena was rather silent as they were too focused on the wooden box. They wanted to see who is the lucky one. Many prayed that the princess wouldn't take the black coin. They wanted to see Ghost fight. Unlike many young masters, they knew they can't see Ghost fight very often. Until this tournament, many didn't even know he could fight. He was the least controversial prodigy in Elon who liked to mind his own business and make fewer enemies. "Please be Andrews. Please be Andrews," Imelda prayed to the gods while Diana prayed to be her son. She didn't want Andrews to get on the same stage as Ghost. The last thing she needed was her son to kill his cousin. After destroying Sky Hall and everyone who would hurt her son, Diana wanted him to have a family that he never had. "Your Royal Highness," the coordinator bowed his head slightly, handing over the wooden box to Princess Catherine. Despite the thousands of eyes on her, Catherine sported a smile on her face. No one except a few didn't know she was praying to pick the golden coin, which was Andrew's. It took a few moments for her to grab a coin in the wooden box. Even though she couldn't see the coin she grabbed, she just hoped it would be the golden coin. "I'm excited," Ishihara giggled. Everyone's gaze was on the princess as she slowly retrieved her hands from the wooden box. "Black coin!" Many gasped in shock, including the princess herself. Catherine's heart skipped a beat looking at the black coin in her hand. Drops of sweat formed on her smooth forehead. He got one step closer to marrying her. If Andrews couldn't defeat Ghost, her father would announce that he will marry her to Ghost. Catherine would rather die than marry that monster in human form. "It's decided then. Ghost will go to the semifinals directly," James Hall said as the participants felt relieved. After seeing what he did to Alex and Peter, none of them wanted to face him in a battle. Andrews, on the other hand, had a mixed feeling. He was glad that he didn't have to face Ghost in the quarterfinal, but he was troubled thinking that he needed to eventually face him. "Now, without further delay, let's begin the quarterfinals," Darius' voice reverberated through the arena. As usual, the body-strengthening stage warriors came to the battle stage to pick their opponents while core formation participants were busy strategizing. "It's time for us to witness the final fight of the day." The crowd wasn't as excited as before when the last fight had Ghost. "Let's have thunderous cheers for our competitors, Paul Oswin and Andrew Winston. Andrew has become the dark horse of the competition, guys," Ishihara commented, while waiting for Andrew and Paul to come to the battle stage. "Yes, it's really stunning to see a rune master with level 3 core formation stage cultivation to come this far," Ishihara nodded as James Hall continued. Many commoners even root for Andrew. People seem to love underdogs. I can see a resolution in Andrew's eyes. It's like he's fighting for something valuable and bigger than the championship title and the rewards. Darius' words echoed in Catherine's mind. Andrew was fighting for her, no one knew that except her. "Humph, underdogs are good for entertainment but not for life," King Breedia snickered. He wanted Ghost to win the tournament so he could make him the Baron of Bradford Barony and marry Catherine to him. If Ghost married Catherine, he knew Ghost would protect his daughter as a good husband should. No matter what, he would only marry his daughter to a warrior who could protect Catherine in all situations. "The last time Andrew fought, he didn't seem like an underdog to me. He defeated his opponent with a single spell." Ishihara reminded everyone of Andrew's third-round fight. Ghost had the longest fight with Peter and Alex, while Andrew had the shortest fight. James Hall paused for a moment and continued. Everyone knew Noah Winston. The moment James Hall uttered the name Noah, the entire arena shook in thunderous cheers. The commoners screamed his name as loud as they could. The three commentators had to go silent for a few moments. Michael had the undying support of Rivertown because he took care of Rivertown, a small town. Noah, however, helped and took care of several small towns, villages, and hundreds or even thousands of commoners in his life. After becoming a guardian, he had the authority and the resources to really help people as well as punish the evil. Hence, commoners loved Noah. The admiration towards Noah was still growing up among the commoners. Andrew's cousin is a warrior prodigy, but no one knew Andrew was just as talented as his guardian cousin. They were both blessed with specializations too. After the cheers died down, James Hall spoke, "They are here," before Ishihara could speak about Paul Oswin. Both the participants landed on the battle stage. "I always thought I would end up fighting your cousin, but never thought I would face you." Paul smiled. He didn't radiate any pride or haughtiness or arrogance. "Life is strange that way, Paul. The spell you used earlier, was that a legendary one?" Many people gasped in shock just by hearing the word legendary. Even nobles leaned forwards to hear Andrew's answer. "I was not that fortunate, Paul. It was an epic spell. I enhanced it with a few runes." Paul's brows arched up as he nodded. He then looked up at the coordinators. "Shall we start the battle?" "I have places to be," Paul asked the coordinators before turning his gaze back to Andrew. "There is no shame in surrendering, Andrew. We, Oswins, have a wedding in our family, so starting it with murder will be a bad omen. I will give you the same advice." Andrew's words didn't make Paul mad as many expected. He just smiled. Unlike many other young masters in prominent families, Paul avoided making unnecessary enemies. He forced on cultivating and minding his own business. Because of his character, some loved him while some loathed him in the Oswin family. "Let's begin the battle." Michael will be back on the... This chapter needed to be written to let the story flow smoothly. If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 365. After the bell rang indicating the start of the battle, both Andrew and Paul took out their weapons from their space rings. A longbow materialized in Paul's hand while the quiver appeared on his back with a bunch of silver arrows. The bow looked no different than any ordinary longbow without any magical symbols or glowing runes on them. Yet no one underestimated the power of the bow after seeing Paul defeat all of his opponents easily with the bow. On the other hand, Andrew took out his 2 emerald green daggers. Unlike Paul's bow, the daggers had glowing runes on them. There were hundreds of small runes placed on the daggers. One of them was the rune that connected Layla's power to Andrew. No one could see through Andrew's cheat. Layla was a master at runes and arrays. Hence she knew how to avoid getting detected by the arrays on the battlefield. The arrays on the battle stage were actually designed by one of the students who studied under the same tutelage as her. Layla knew her attacks wouldn't work on Ghost, but she made some modifications to the runes on Andrew's daggers. She believed it would defeat Ghost. Deep down in her heart, Layla wanted Ghost to be a good righteous man instead of being cruel and evil. She didn't want him to change for her but for someone else. The first step to changing him was making him understand the power of true love. Although Andrew had her power, she knew that without strong willpower, his mind and body would have literally exploded. It was love that kept Andrew alive. On the battle stage, Paul knocked a silver arrow in the bowstring to fire at Andrew. He didn't cast any spells but just wanted to test Andrew's reaction time and speed. Ice Shield. Andrew immediately cast a spell that formed a wall of ice before him. The arrow penetrated the ice shield a couple of inches but couldn't break the shield. Sonic Arrow. Without giving Andrew to mount up an offensive spell, Paul fired another arrow. This time, when the arrow left the bowstring, it produced a booming sound as it soared through the air towards Andrew. Andrew immediately leaped out of the safety of the ice shield. The moment the sonic arrow touched the ice shield, the shield exploded into pieces. Instead of falling to the ground, the arrow flew back into Paul's hand like a boomerang. He fired the arrow yet again at Andrew. Ice Shield. The shield spell could be cast quickly. Hence Andrew cast the spell again to save himself from the arrow. Since Andrew had the power of Layla, the shield stopped Paul's arrow from penetrating through the shield to impale Andrew. The ice shield grew up to 7 feet from the stage. Using the split second before the arrow destroyed the shield, Andrew placed a rune on the shield. Then he dashed away from the cover of the shield. Unaware of the rune, Paul fired the arrow yet again. The arrow pierced through the air like a bullet. When the arrow's tip touched the ice shield didn't explode, but the arrow bounced back. Paul didn't expect the arrow to bounce back. But before he could react, the arrow exploded in the mid-air, sending a shock wave at Paul. The rune was supposed to send back a portion of the attack's power to the attacker. Since Andrew had the power of Layla, the rune almost returned 100% power back to Paul. It was like Paul hit himself with the sonic arrow. Paul was knocked back by the shock wave as Andrew dashed at Paul to close the gap between them. Because Paul was an archer, Andrew knew getting closer to Paul would put him in a disadvantageous position. While running towards Paul, Andrew drew symbols in the air as the crowd saw golden runes appear in the air before disappearing into the battle stage. They saw similar runes when Peter fought Ghost. Many doubted Paul could break the runes as Ghost did. Seeing Andrew running towards him, Paul immediately tried to take another arrow from his quiver, but he was too late as Andrew leaped into the air. "Gates of Valhalla! Cling!" In the mid-air, Andrew shouted as he smacked the 2 daggers together. Suddenly Paul felt an immense pressure on him, like he was being crushed by an invisible mountain. Arg! Cough! Cough! Paul caught up blood as the pressure increased by multiple folds. At this point, Andrew almost came down on him with his full might. Paul tried to move his body, yet he couldn't move at all. Meanwhile, lying on the bed, Michael was watching the battle in a 55-inch mirror. He felt like watching television back on Earth. So Layla is somehow enhancing his power. Interesting, Michael snickered. Don't underestimate Layla. The system can sense some changes in the energy patterns. Although these energy patterns cannot kill you, it can still harm you, the system informed Michael. I'm pretty sure you can make me immune. For a price, of course. But do you want the system to make you immune? You want to cheat? Isn't Andrew cheating right now? If it wasn't for Layla, Andrew would not be here. Besides, I have bigger things to worry about than dealing with Layla's bitchiness and petty feuds. Michael turned the pages of Lord Information's book to learn more about Wuxia. Are you thinking about taking the guild leader position? The system was more talkative than usual. Michael was too focused on building a revenge plan against Wuxia to mind the system's talkative nature. Not thinking. I already decided to take the position of guild leader. Aren't you supposed to take revenge for Abras as you promised him? Oh? Then how about we go to Wuxia tomorrow? Ask the princess and her royal family to kneel down and let me kill them, he said sarcastically. Sarcasm much. No shit. According to this book, they are already powerful enough to wipe out Bredia and any kingdom in Elon within a few weeks. Those bastards are just dragging the war to hide their true power. Just thinking about Wuxia made his blood boil. He could vividly see the princess sending a dagger through his heart that she promised to take care of. Abras gave the princess his heart and she put a dagger through it. Still, Michael didn't know Abras was just another piece of his soul. I can use their resources to become stronger and I can plan my revenge under their nose. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer system. Calvin didn't recognize you, but the princess will. And now you can't change your face as Calvin had seen your original face. Abras always sported a clean-shaven look with long hair. When I have to meet the princess, I can go with a long Viking beard and short hair. As far as they are concerned, they killed Abras. They won't expect to see him again. While talking, he looked at the mirror to see Paul and Andrew still fighting. Paul seemed to be in a worse state than Andrew. Paul's sleeves had been torn away as he had blood coming out of his mouth and nose. They have the cosmic stream host. The more time you waste, the stronger they would become, the system warned Michael. Then I will become stronger. If I wanted to kill that bitch and her family, I would have done it by now. I don't want to kill them. Death is mercy for them. What are you planning to do? In his anger, Michael failed to notice the fear in the system's voice. I will make the princess and everyone they care about experience hell. I don't like to torture people, but I will make an exception for them. I will enjoy every second of it. Anyone who stands in my path will die. Wuxia will burn. The entire room became darker as he spoke. The system noticed his strength slowly increasing. In this world, many cultivators are doing evil shits every day. But the guardians painted me like the manifestation of evil, the Dark Lord. I will show the guardians what I am really capable of. Michael stood up from the bed as he walked towards the mirror. May gods have mercy upon Thusians, 'cause I want at this exact moment. A large tree could be seen on a lonely mountain. The large tree stood alone atop the mountain. One could see a figure tied to the tree. The figure was more like merged with the tree itself. The figure's face was covered in moths, mud, and blood. He had a gray beard and shaggy hair. His body was riddled with scars as though he was cut thousands of times by someone. My God is here, the figure smiled, looking in the direction of the Elon continent. Back in Michael's room, he was staring at the mirror as Andrew stood beside Paul with his daggers against Paul's throat. I surrender. Michael heard Paul utter the words. The crowd erupted in cheers as Andrew plummeted to the ground in exhaustion. In the giant mirrors, Michael saw Imelda clapping in joy with tears of joy running down on her face. He then saw the crowd cheering as loud as they could for the underdog of this tournament, Andrew. Even Claire and the elders of the Sunrise sect were clapping to show their support without having any idea of how Andrew managed to beat Paul. Ding, ding, ding. Suddenly, before the coordinators helped Andrew and Paul leave the stage, 3 loud bell sounds reverberated the arena. The view of the battle stage immediately changed to the VIP stage in the mirror. They all saw King Bredia stand up with a grin on his face. Please, he raised his hand as the crowd immediately became silent. I have an announcement to make. The winner of the Core Formation Championship will be rewarded with the title Baron along with Bradford Barony. For people like Ashton, it wasn't a piece of surprising news, but for commoners, it was another story. Many sounds of gasping could be heard in the arena. The king stayed silent for a few moments before speaking again. And the hand of my daughter, Princess Catherine, in marriage. If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 366. On this cloudy morning, there were growing patches of blue, the sort of hue that was soft and bright at the same time. Though beneath the sheet of cloud was a gray that deepened to steel, the leading edge was a brilliant white, as if it was the pages of a new book ready for any curious eye. So, on this day that could bring rain or sunshine, no one in the arena except the VIP guests and commentators remained in their seats. Their eyes were glued to the battle stage. In the center of the battle stage, 2 figures were laying on the floor. One was completely bathed in blood from head to toe. The other one was no different than the other, except he knelt on the battle stage on one knee. Anyone could tell he was about to tumble down any second. The figure laid on the ground was Dukan, a rogue cultivator, while the other was Andrew. This was the first fight of the semifinal which would decide the finalist. As Andrew was fighting with everything he got to stay awake, the coordinators landed on the ground to check on Dukan. Knockout! The coordinator's voice echoed through the arena as the crowd erupted into cheers for Andrew. Andrew has entered the final. He has made history, reaching the final with the lowest cultivation level. That kid really put up a fight. I'm really impressed, followed by Ishihara and Jameis comments. Darius also praised Andrew. The entire arena was shouting Andrew's name as the fireworks decorated the sky along with their thunderous exploding sounds. Princess Catherine quickly wiped off the tear running out of her eyes before anyone could see her watery eyes. Andrew, 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 Andrew. The crowd kept chanting Andrew's name. Surprisingly, their cheers gave Andrew a little bit of strength to stay still instead of falling onto the ground. The fight between Andrew and Dukan went for almost an hour and a half. Although Andrew had the power of Layla behind him, Dukan fought strategically, which made defeating him difficult for Andrew. Andrew was a core formation level 2 runemaster, while Dukan was a level 6 core formation warrior. Many thought this match was the end of Andrew's journey as the power gap between them was too wide. However, Andrew proved everyone wrong and defeated Dukan. Andrew almost died defeating Dukan. Andrew has proved to us that the willpower can overcome the cultivation level difference. Even if Andrew couldn't win the tournament, his name will be remembered for years to come. James Hall praised Andrew. He will be an inspiration for many cultivators. His journey will show the others that one can overcome a cultivation difference with willpower and courage. Ishihara joined James Hall in praising Andrew. The Winstons felt extremely proud of Andrew at the moment. At first, they all doubted him and even tried to stop him from competing in the tournament. Nonetheless, Noah vouched for Andrew and gave his support. Even Andrew's mother Natalia didn't want Andrew to participate as she was afraid of him getting hurt. Natalia was the softest among the 3 Hunt sisters. Regardless of Andrew's reasons to compete in the tournament, Natalia tried to stop him because she couldn't even think about losing her son. Help them reach the infirmary. The coordinators lifted Andrew and Dukan and flew towards the infirmary. Eventually, after a team of maids cleaned up the blood off the battle stage, the crowd became excited again. Since the next fight would decide the finalist who was going to fight Andrew, the crowd was on the edge of their seats. Moreover, they were excited to see Ghost. "It's time for the battle we've been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen," Ishihara announced. "And don't worry, people. The battle will not be stopped if it rains." Hearing Darius' voice, many sighed in relief. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and everyone could hear thunderclaps in the distance. Heavy downpour was evident, but no one wanted the rain to interrupt the battle. Participant Reagan and participant Ghost of Sunrise Sect, please come to the stage. The moment Ishihara uttered the name Ghost, the arena once again let out thunderous cheers. Almost 2/3 of the arena were bouncing up and down, showing signs boards that had the letters "We Love Ghost," waving black flags as well as Sunrise Sect flags, and shouting Ghost's name as loud as they could. Even those who hated Ghost, such as Morningstar disciples, became jealous of the support and cheers Ghost received. As the fans were cheering, Reagan landed on the battle stage with a swift leap. Reagan was a tall man, standing 6'2" tall. This bronze-skinned man had a really tough feel about him. A particularly notable feature was his muscular build. His hip length, shiny, light brown hair, currently dip-dyed at the ends with shades of sky blue, features a messy fringe. He has a uniquely styled, perfectly trimmed beard. His square face with brown eyes didn't show any emotions looking at the cheers for his opponent, Ghost. Waiting for Ghost, Reagan flicked his wrist as a 7-foot war hammer appeared in his hand. Unlike the other participants, Reagan wore no armor to protect himself. He just wore leather pants adorned with gray fur and long snakeskin boots. Layla was watching Reagan with the other commoners. She was in a battle with her heart and mind. After talking to her mentor and contemplating what happened inside the treacherous ocean, she understood that Ghost was to be blamed completely. She knew it was her impulse that led to the first energies occupying their bodies, which led to spirit walking. He had no choice. Her mind told her that, but her heart was burning in fury. He took her purity, her heart couldn't accept it. After threatening him of destroying everyone he cares about, she felt disgusted with herself. She knew she acted like a first-class hypocrite. How could she call him evil after she herself threatened to kill innocents? Reagan forfeited the battle. The coordinators murmured among themselves while the crowd was looking at Ghost speechlessly. Even Ghost's supporters was unable to believe what just happened. They were expecting an exchange of blows, not words. Ghost wins, the coordinators announced. It took a few moments for the crowd to open their mouths again to cheer. They were stunned. Catherine's heart skipped a beat listening to the commenters announce that Ghost had reached the final. When the crowd finally began to cheer, Ghost already left the battle stage. This was the shortest semi-final they all had seen in their lives. Ghost just came, said a few words to Reagan and made him forfeit the battle. Unlike Andrew, who shed almost all of his blood, Ghost had entered the final without even breaking a sweat. "I hope you don't mind being called Lady Ghost." Kathy King Breedia leaned closer to Catherine's ears and said with a chuckle, "This is it, my dear readers, the chapter before the finals. Andrew versus Michael will begin from the... If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, Consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 367. After the semi-final round between Ghost and Reagan, the commentators announced a 6 hours break before the final of body-strengthening stage cultivators. In the final, Sabrina faced Victoria. The final battle lasted for an hour before Sabrina overpowered Victoria and defeated her. The battle between the girls kept everyone on the edge of their seats. Even Ashton, who wasn't very interested in the tournament, watched the fight without batting an eye. Many expected Sabrina to give a speech after winning the championship, while the commoners wondered what would be the rewards. However, Sabrina just said thank you to the crowd and left the battle stage. Taking the Pegasi carriage offered to her by the Holy Trident Academy, Sabrina flew towards where Andrew was staying. The sun had almost disappeared into the horizon when she reached the manor where Andrew was staying. Young Miss, when her carriage landed, quickly few of the guards staying outside guarding the door came to open the carriage door. They bent forwards to show their respects. Andrew inside? Yes, young Miss. Sabrina hastened inside to meet her cousin, leaving the carriage under the care of the guards. At first Sabrina thought winning the championship tournament would make her feel pleased, or at least something, except it didn't. Although she fought with Victoria for almost an hour, she didn't use her full power. If she had defeated Elia, she knew she would have felt different. However, Sabrina could not think about anything at the moment except her cousin's condition. She hastened inside the home. Entering the manor, she walked straight to the hall where she saw Andrew with several people standing around him. She expected Andrew to be in his room taking a rest. Instead, she found him surrounded by people. Andrew was resting on the sofa while Imelda had her hand on his shoulder. She was consoling him. Sabrina saw her mother, Aunt Imelda, a hooded person who stood in a corner of the hall, Alicia and Norvin. Sabi Imelda was surprised to see Sabrina enter the hall. All of their gazes, including Andrew's, fell on Sabrina. You won? Diana asked as though she already knew the answer. Sabrina gave a small nod before walking towards Andrew. Shouldn't you be celebrating your win right now, Sabi? Andrew asked with a gentle smile on his face as usual. He tried to hide his worries with a smile, but Sabrina could see through the facade. I know why you are worried, Andrew. Andrew raised his brows as Sabrina smiled. Dad isn't very good at keeping secrets from me, Andrew. Don't you know that? I know that, Andrew sighed as he chuckled. How is your brother Ollie? Sabrina asked Alicia. Alicia remained silent. The healers said they could only heal the physical wounds, not the mental ones, Norvin answered instead of Alicia. Sabrina sighed. What Ghost did to him was cruel and ruthless. However, Sabrina also knew Peter brought it on him by himself. No one asked Peter to dress up as a vigilante to ambush Ghost and other prodigies just to prove he is better than them. Time will heal everything, Imelda said. Alicia nodded, but she knew the mental wounds of Peter would never heal unless he could defeat Ghost and humiliate him as Ghost did to him. Andrew, I am asking you again. Are you sure you want to do this? Diana asked Andrew. Is there any other way we can convince Catherine's father? Imelda asked a question after Diana. Can Catherine tell her father she loves you? Sabrina asked. Andrew was getting bombarded with questions until Alicia opened her mouth. Why is everyone talking like he's going to lose? When we all, including me, thought Andrew couldn't do this, he came this far and proved us wrong. He will defeat Ghost, have some faith in him. Everyone was speechless for a few moments. They couldn't argue with Alicia's words. It's because I cheated, suddenly Andrew said, stunning everyone. Cheated? What are you talking about? Imelda creased her brows. Except for Diana and Alicia, everyone looked flabbergasted. Alicia knew about Noah's deal with Layla and her involvement in Andrew's victory. Diana, however, didn't know anything about Layla or Noah's deal with her, but she was able to tell that something was amiss. If it wasn't for Lady Alden, I wouldn't have reached this far. Lady Alden? Layla Alden? Sabrina literally started to shiver hearing the name. Without your mental resolution and willpower, you would have died taking my power. They all heard the melodious voice as they turned their eyes towards the hooded person. Sabrina saw the hooded one taking off her hood covering her head to reveal her angelic face. Sabrina felt like she was going to faint. The woman in front of her was Layla Alden, one of the legends of this world. She had only seen Layla in the paintings in her Holy Trident Academy. Layla was a pride of all woman cultivators. She was the embodiment of woman power. "How far would you go for the girl you love, Andrew?" Layla asked as everyone stared at her in shock. "I give my life for her." Slap. The moment Andrew finished speaking these words, a slapping sound could be heard in the hall. Sabrina was stunned to see her always gentle and warm Aunt Imelda slap Andrew. No one could believe he got slapped by Imelda. "Are you really prepared to give your life for a girl you know for how long? A year? Or 2 years? What about us, your family? What about your mother?" Imelda was stuck between worry and anger. Her eyes were bloodshot. "You're gonna quit whining, go out there and defeat Ghost. Cheating or no cheating, you will defeat him. You know why? Because you have us." Her words did not motivate Andrew but somewhat calmed the storm within him. "If you can't defeat him, don't be stupid to fight till you die. Just say you surrender and we will figure out how to deal with everything that follows later." Norvin gave a piece of advice of his own. Unlike Imelda, Norvin doubted Andrew could really defeat Ghost. As much as Norvin wanted Andrew to defeat him, he was less optimistic about that. Diana was in a world of her own thinking. All the people in the room thought Ghost was some kind of monster. Ever since he was born, he has faced nothing but tragedies. And he faced everything life throws at him alone. She didn't know why they called him the Dark Lord when there are hundreds or even thousands of evil cultivators who were capable of great evil roaming the work as they speak. Meanwhile, in Michael's room, he was sitting in front of Calvin reading several parchments on the glass table. "Feel free to tell me if you have any changes to be made," Calvin said with a smile. "No changes required, Calvin. I hope you guys will have my back when the time comes." Michael inked the quill to sign the parchments as he spoke. "Don't worry, King Bredia won't go to war with you if you choose to reject the princess." Michael looked up at Calvin with his brows arched up. Michael was surprised to see Calvin grasp the upcoming problem without any explanation. "Like I said, I did my research. I know you are not going to accept the marriage proposal. Naturally, rejecting a king's offer would result in problems. But worry not, Thusia will have your back. This time, it'll be the one stabbing you in the back." Michael thought to himself, "It will be a pleasure to work with Thusians," as he said. Michael signed his name on the parchment. With this sign, he had officially become the guild leader of the Thusian Alchemy Guild. Finally, Michael stood up to shake Calvin's hands. "Welcome aboard, Ghost." After shaking Michael's hand with a wide grin on his face, Calvin handed over a space ring to Michael. "This contains some welcoming gifts from Thusia Ghost. I hope you like them." The final day of the tournament began with a drizzle. The dark rain clouds filled the sky like marching soldiers. The thunderclaps in the distance implied the upcoming heavy downpour. The arena was filled with chit-chat from the fans. Not a single person who wasn't in the conversation of who would win the championship. Of course, many voted for Ghost while only a few voted for Andrew. "Welcome to the finals, ladies and gentlemen." Ishihara's announcement finally brought down the volume of their chit-chat. But only for a few moments, though, as the crowd yet again erupted into cheers. "It has been a roller coaster ride, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think, guys?" James Hall asked. "I think we better start the final before they start a riot." Ishihara giggled. "Before we start the final, let us see the journey of the two finalists, Andrew Winston and Ghost." After Darius spoke, the giant mirror began to broadcast the highlights of both Ghost and Andrew's battles. Seeing both of their battles gave goosebumps to the commoners and raised their expectations to another level. The highlight reel went for almost 15 minutes. Looking at the reels, Alicia once again shivered in anger. She wanted to destroy the mirrors to oblivion when they showed Ghost mopping the floor with her brother. What disturbed her more was the people who roared seeing Ghost's ruthlessness. Sitting on her throne, Catherine clenched her fist tightly. Her heart pounded against her chest looking at the vial in her hand. The king was too focused on Ghost's highlights reels to notice the vial in his daughter's hands. Finalists Andrew Winston and Ghost, please come to the battle stage. The entire arena was shouting the names Ghost and Andrew to show their support. The majority of the crowd was waving black flags. Under their thunderous cheers, Andrew appeared above the battle stage and slowly descended onto the battle stage. Andrew ignored all the cheers to focus on the upcoming battle. Ghost! 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 While Andrew was trying to ignore the shouts, he heard the arena erupt in cheers. He looked up to see Ghost slowly descending onto the battle stage with his black long coat fluttering in the wind. Unlike Andrew, Ghost seemed calm with his usual smile on his face. Shall we start, Andrew? If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 368. The distant howling sound of the wind coupled with the thunderclaps gave off an ominous feeling. The violent wind made waving the signs and flags difficult, yet the wind couldn't completely stop them. Michael's long black coat fluttered in the wind behind, revealing the black turtleneck and the lines of his chest and abs. After asking Andrew, Michael looked up at the coordinators. Guys, can we start the battle now? I have a barony to look, except for a very few. None of them thought of him as arrogant. Ding, ding, ding. Let the battle begin. As though the coordinators were working for him, they started the battle. Andrew stared at him with his 2 daggers in his hands. He was expecting Ghost to cast a spell. After watching all of Ghost's fight and strategizing with Layla and Sabrina, Andrew was somewhat prepared. Andrew, instead of unsheathing his swords, Michael smiled at Andrew. Dude, you can come up with new ways to get what you want instead of this. Regardless of what Noah did to the Silent Reaper, Michael didn't want to hurt Noah's family. They were nothing but good to him. He knew Layla was kinda using Andrew to prove to him that nothing's stronger and purer than love. He couldn't understand Layla's logic completely. This is the only way, Ghost, Andrew said as Michael sighed. So be it. Michael began to walk forward towards Andrew. He didn't cast lightning dash or any spell. He just walked towards Andrew without even taking out his swords. Gates of Valhalla. Andrew didn't waste any time. He immediately cast one of the strongest spells he has in his arsenal. The whole arena was silent as only the thunderclaps and the howling sound of the wind could be heard. They were staring at Michael and Andrew without batting an eye. The commentators were going about, but Michael or Andrew didn't hear what they were saying. Claire was looking at Andrew with pity. Reflective shield. Michael just uttered the word while walking towards Andrew. When Andrew cast Gates of Valhalla on Paul Oswin, he was crushed by immense pressure. However, when Andrew cast the spell on Ghost, nothing happened. Ghost was just a few meters away from Andrew. Emerald Thorns. After competing in a couple of life or death battles, Andrew's thinking and reflexes became quicker. Hence, instead of being stunned by the uselessness of the Gates of Valhalla, Andrew cast another spell immediately. From the 2 daggers in Andrew's hands, Michael saw emerald green spikes coming towards him like arrows. There were numerous spikes the size of an arrow pierced through the air to impale him. Andrew was shooting like he was holding 2 machine guns that fired spikes rapidly. Standing among the crowd, Layla's eyes began to water up. She spent months creating runes that could change her energy patterns so she would not be defenseless against Ghost. She used those runes to give Andrew the ability to fight against Ghost, hoping it would hurt him. Yet, neither the Gates of Valhalla nor the Emerald Thorns couldn't even graze him. Imelda's heart was pounding against her chest as Ghost got closer to Andrew. Ethan was rubbing his temples, hoping Ghost would go easy on Andrew. Oh no, he's in trouble, Norvin said with a grimaced face. Ice Shield. Andrew cast another spell to slow Ghost in his path. Michael saw a 7-foot wall made of ice erupt a few meters before him. The wall seemed to be at least a meter wide and looked sturdy. Everyone, including Andrew, expected Michael to destroy the wall using a spell or his fist. Unexpectedly, they saw Ghost deviate from the straight line he was walking on and walked around the wall instead of destroying the wall. Andrew, who placed an explosive rune that would bounce the attack power back to the attacker, had a troubled look on his face. All the opponents Andrew faced got defeated by either of the 3 spells he just cast. The spell had Layla's fusion stage power behind it, hence, A core formation cultivator couldn't take the attack of Andrew. However, Michael was immune to Layla's attacks. Therefore, Andrew, who had Layla's power, couldn't even touch him. Without Layla, he's as weak as a blind, sick puppy, Michael sighed inside. He actually felt pity for Andrew. After realizing long-ranged attacks were not working, Andrew changed his tactic. He activated the runes on his dagger as several golden symbols began to glow on the daggers. "Don't do it, Andrew," Diana mumbled under her breath, looking at her nephew, leaping higher into the air to attack Ghost with his daggers. Since Andrew would not be able to learn swordsmanship in a few weeks, Noah taught Andrew how to fight with daggers. It had been a big help to Andrew in the tournament against other opponents. But Diana knew against a swordsman like Ghost, who seemed to have mastered the swords, Andrew was like a child. Seeing Andrew descending upon him, Michael just shook his head disappointedly. The people were on the edge of their seats. Just when Andrew was a couple of inches away from him, Michael grabbed Andrew by his wrists in the midair. Andrew lost his momentum and control when Ghost grabbed him. His movement was extremely fast as Andrew didn't even see Ghost move his hands. Andrew's feet touched the ground. He looked Ghost in the eyes while struggling to get out of his hold. "If there's a next time, don't depend on others to fight your battles." Andrew felt his heart skip a beat hearing his words. His words sounded as though Ghost knew he was cheating in the tournament. Chuck. The very next moment, Andrew felt immense pain in his head. The crowd saw Ghost head but Andrew so hard that the sound of their head clashing reverberated through the silent arena. Michael slowly trusted Andrew's wrists as Andrew's face muscles began to twitch in pain. He headbutted Andrew again without giving him much time to let out a cry of pain. A sound of bone cracking could be heard when Ghost headbutted Andrew. In the giant mirrors, they all saw Andrew's nose bent weirdly sideways as blood poured out of his nostrils. If it wasn't for the excruciating pain in his wrists, Andrew would have fainted. The world around him started to spin. Most people expected Michael to break Andrew's wrists, but he proved them wrong by slamming Andrew on the ice shield. Andrew erupted. Boom! The booming noise sounded across the arena, while pebbles of ice crumbled down due to the force of Andrew hitting the wall. The force and pain immediately made Andrew cough up blood. Ghost slammed him again on the ice shield like Andrew was a rag doll. When he slammed Andrew the second time, the rune Andrew placed on the wall glowed as the ice shield exploded with immense force. "Andrew!" Imelda shouted from her pavilion. The ice vapor prevented the crowd from seeing what happened to Andrew and Ghost for a few moments. When the fog created by the ice vapor faded away, they saw Ghost was standing beside Andrew, who was lying on the ground, coughing up blood. "Give up, Andrew," Michael said, looking at Andrew at his feet. He didn't even use a fraction of his power. Nonetheless, Andrew was almost at death's door. To Michael's surprise, Andrew pulled himself up after failing to stand up a couple of times. Seeing Andrew really surprised Michael. Andrew was indeed resilient. Still, Michael just shook his head before grabbing Andrew by his neck. Half of Andrew's face was covered in blood and swollen. "Taking a beating doesn't solve your problems, Andrew," despite Andrew being his opponent, Michael advised him. For some reason, Michael felt bad for beating up Andrew. Perhaps it was because the Winstons were good to him, perhaps it was because he pitied Andrew. Nevertheless, he punched Andrew in the face. He didn't use much power as he didn't want to mess up Andrew's brain. As long as he could, he wanted Noah and Winston's not to be his enemies. "I will never surrender." These words barely escaped Andrew's mouth when Michael stopped punching him. "You're not helping yourself, Andrew." The crowd saw Michael clench his fist as veins popped up on his fist. The crowd gasped. They could guess the next punch would be several times more powerful than the previous ones. If this was a movie or a drama, Andrew would have gotten a sudden power boost thinking about his love and escaping Michael's hold. Since it was not the case and Andrew had no powerful being inside his ring, Andrew couldn't even move a muscle. He could just hope he wouldn't lose consciousness. "Space warp!" Suddenly Michael heard a shout. In a blink of an eye, his hair neck stood up, sensing a threat. He immediately let go of Andrew to leap into the air. In the mid-air, he bent his back and landed on the battle stage comfortably. When he landed on the battle stage, He saw Princess Catherine standing in the place where he was a moment ago. She held Andrew in her hand. Tears kept rolling out of her eyes. Andrew, please wake up. It's Kathy. The entire arena was stunned by the act of the princess. Even the commenters or the coordinators expected Princess to suddenly appear. Not even the arrays could stop her interference because the short teleportation spell she just used was a legendary spell. Michael saw a silver dagger in Catherine's place. His killing intent rose up, realizing she would have killed him if it wasn't for his reflexes and instincts. Catherine! Finally, the king realized what just happened. He stood up from his throne along with all the VIPs beside him. No one remained in the seats anymore. The princess caught everyone off guard. I am going to kill you. Michael, along with the entire arena, heard the princess let out a murderous grumble. Chapter 369. Princess, you are nothing, your majesty. The king's guards quickly surrounded King Bredia when he tried to rush to the battle stage. The coordinators, on the other hand, were stunned to see the sudden appearance of Princess Catherine. Since she used a powerful legendary-level teleportation scroll, they weren't aware of her arrival. Just as the coordinators were about to land on the battle stage, the princess leaped at Ghost with her daggers raised. Andrew could barely lift his hand towards Michael. He wanted to utter the words "don't hurt her," yet failed to do so. "You monster!" she shouted, swinging her daggers at Michael. Seeing the princess trying to attack Michael, Nightmare bore his teeth. Claire felt the dragon's body becoming hotter and hotter. Little 1-inch Claire brushed the dragon's head to calm him down. Claire wasn't worried about Ghost. She was worried about the princess. All the nobles in the VIP pavilions, along with the commoners, stood up from their seats. They all were either too excited or worried about the princess. "Monster me!" Michael chuckled while evading the dagger easily. "You heartless bastard!" she was shouting while violently swinging her daggers. Michael just kept moving his body with his hand behind his back. He could see the king flying towards the battle stage with his royal guards. "You have the courage for this, but not for talking to your father?" Michael snickered, swiftly moving his body away from her daggers. He moved like water, swift and smooth. "Kids shouldn't play with these." Michael suddenly flicked the princess' wrist as she lost the dagger. In a blink of an eye, he made her lose another dagger with another flick to her wrist. "See how weak you are." Michael threw the daggers outside the battle stage. "Stop!" The king's shout echoed through the arena. The princess' body froze. Her anger slowly faded away while she started to come back to reality. The king's royal guards immediately surrounded the princess. They were all at the core strengthening stage level 8 and wore full metal armor from head to toe. At the moment, they all surrounded the princess, staring at Michael through the hole in their helms. Michael didn't dare to hurt the princess as it would turn the entire Bredia kingdom against him. However, that didn't mean the princess would escape without paying the price for trying to kill him. "Kathy, what is the meaning of this?" The king's facial muscles twitched. He shivered in anger. Since everything went into a chaotic state, the coordinators paused the battle. Immediately, Sabrina flew to the battle stage along with the Winstons. Ghost won. Standing in the Rivertown Pavilion, Ricky, the sneaky bastard, shouted, riling up Ghost's fans. Soon, a few disciples followed Ricky's shout. Then a group started to shout, and in a few moments, entire fans of Ghost were shouting in unison. "Ghost won! Ghost won! Ghost won! Ghost won! Ghost won!" The badass points began to go up yet again. "I love Andrew." The princess' shout, however, sounded louder than the cheers. The cheers immediately stopped after hearing her words. "You can't make me marry another man. I will rather die than marry this monster." The king was too stunned to utter another word. In his whole life, he had never seen Catherine act the way she was acting at the moment. "You're nothing but a heartless bastard." Not even his parents wanted him. They threw him away like a piece of trash. "How can I marry this piece of trash?" Since Catherine couldn't hurt him with daggers, she started to spew hurtful words. Diana couldn't help clenching her fist. She wasn't the gentle Diana in her heart anymore. Harriet Hunt, who was buried within her heart, had returned. She wanted nothing but to rip off the prince's throat. "Me? Piece of trash?" Michael asked after realizing the king wouldn't say something to shut her daughter. He was too stunned to utter any words. No matter how strong you become, how rich you become, you will never be someone like Andrew. You will never have the last name. You will always be someone who was abandoned by your parents. Michael was getting really pissed off at the princess. He had nothing to do with their little scheme. If he was Andrew, he could have found 100 ways to get King Bredia's permission instead of depending on Noah and Layla to do something impossible. Of course, Michael had to give credit to Noah to put together a plan that would have gotten Andrew what he wanted in a short amount of time. If it wasn't for him, Andrew would have won the competition. If anyone should be blamed, it was Layla. As far as Michael was concerned, she should have told her vulnerability against him to Andrew or Noah. "Let me go," Nightmare grumbled. Claire's hands began to hurt due to the heat Nightmare radiated. There was no doubt that if she let go of the dragon, he would go burn the battle stage in fury. Even the gentle Claire began to feel anger boiling inside her after hearing the prince's words. Ethan creased his brows. He wanted to shout as loud as he could that Ghost is his son, not an orphan. However, he knew if he did that, the entire Sky Hall would come down on his son with their full power. Sky Hall wasn't something anyone could win against. Even the great clans wouldn't go against the Sky Hall. While the princess was cursing at Michael, Sabrina made Andrew drink a healing potion. The wounds on the outside and the internal wounds gradually healed up as Andrew slowly opened his eyes. "Tsk tisk tsk." Michael shook his head with a narcissistic smile on his face. He looked around the arena before turning his gaze back at the princess. "Even though I am an orphan, I have an identity." The core disciple of the Sunrise sect, a prodigy, a man who reached the 100th step in Heaven's Gate competition, and Michael paused for a moment to look at the crowd once again, the 5-star alchemist of Bredia. His cold voice sent a chill running through everyone's spines. The smile on his face finally disappeared as he stared at the princess. "Without that princess title, what are you?" "Humph," Michael snickered. Many gasped, hearing Michael's question. There was no fear in his eyes. No one would dare to disrespect a princess in public, yet Ghost did exactly just that in front of her father, the king, and thousands of people. Michael wasn't afraid of the king anymore. He now had 2 major powers behind him, the Kane family and the kingdom of Thusia. Take away that princess title and you are nothing, not even a piece of trash. Nothing. The princess shivered in anger. Even when Ghost was beating the crap out of him, Andrew never felt any anger towards Ghost. However, hearing him distract the girl he loves, Andrew's anger exploded within him. "Catherine!" King Bredia's shout reverberated in the arena. He was too mad at his own daughter to the point he failed to get mad at Michael for disrespecting her. Perhaps the king deep down knew the princess deserved what she got after cursing Ghost and acting like a spoiled brat. "I am not a puppet. You can marry me to whoever you want." Catherine stomped the ground. "I will marry no one but Andrew. I am not afraid of you anymore, father." Catherine lost all her composure. Her attitude and her words made King Bredia's body tremble in overwhelming fury. Guards who stood closer to the king could hear the king's teeth grinding noise. His breathing got heavier and faster. "You will marry this man." King Bredia pointed his finger at Ghost. Michael was so annoyed by the father and daughter duo. This was supposed to be settled inside walls, but the princess brought the family matter to the eyes of the public. Not only that, they dragged him into the middle of their family feud. In the corner of his eyes, Michael saw Calvin give him a nod, wordlessly expressing his support for Ghost. And just when Michael was about to reject the princess, Catherine began to chuckle as tears began to roll out of her hazel eyes. She looked at Andrew, who was being held back by Sabrina and Imelda. "Forgive me, father," she said, looking at King Bredia. Then she turned her watery eyes towards Andrew. "I hope I will get to live with you in the next life, Andrew. Please forgive me." As she said these words, a purplish vial appeared in her hands. "Kathy!" Andrew shouted as she dashed forward. No one knew what was inside the vial, but anyone could tell it was not something she should drink. However, it was too late as she already chugged the entire vial. Some of the royal guards tried to stop Andrew while the others caught the princess who was falling. "No! Kathy!" King Bredia and Andrew dashed at Catherine, shaking all the guards around them. In the giant mirror, the crowd saw Princess Catherine's rosy skin slowly turning purple. Blood oozed out of her nostrils, mouth as well as her eyes. Her body violently twitched. "Healers!" King Bredia fell to the ground and lifted his daughter's head. Andrew also came to the prince's side. He held the prince's hand. The king was too worried about his daughter to mind Andrew. "No, no, no, don't leave me." Tears rushed out of Andrew's eyes. His tears watered Catherine's face. Seeing his daughter's body twitching violently in his arms, King Bredia's heart ached in pain. The flashes of him holding the princess for the first time when she was born flashed across his eyes. That was the happiest day of his life. At the moment, he was not a king but a failed father. Well, 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 this is an interesting turn of events. Unlike Andrew and the king, Michael wasn't shedding any tears. He was looking at the princess with a blank expression. As far as he was concerned, they could just hold a funeral on the battle stage. He couldn't care less. All he wanted was the rewards, the barony. He had a few plans for the Bradford barony. If you like this chapter, please comment, send Power Stones. If you really like this chapter and my novel, consider sending me gifts as it would motivate me to put out more chapters. Any criticism, feel free to bash me in the comments. Chapter 370 Healers. Both Andrew and King Bredia screamed as loud as they could. "Move!" Suddenly a melodious voice sounded through the battle stage. The royal guards immediately tensed up, looking at the hooded figure slowly descending from the sky. In the mid-air, the figure removed the cloak to reveal her angelic face. Looking at the face in the giant mirrors, hundreds of gasps sounded in the arena. Layla Alden Ashton's brows raised up. After landing on the battle stage, she walked towards the princess. "Stop!" However, the royal guards shouted at her to stop. They didn't know who this woman was. They perceived her as a threat to the king. In a blink of an eye, a majestically crafted vina materialized in her hand. Ding! Her rosy slender finger played one string as a powerful sonic wave hit the royal guards. The royal guards flung away from the battle stage as though they were hit by a powerful storm. The wave only targeted the royal guards, hence, the others remained on the battle stage. "Who are you?" King Bredia asked with a shivering voice. Lady Alden Andrew shouted as a mix of relief and joy hit his core. He heard Noah talk about Layla's healing powers. Guards! King Bredia's mind went black seeing the purplish body of his daughter. He didn't want anyone else to harm his daughter. He was acting crazy in others' eyes. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, King Bredia. You asked for healers and she's the best." Ashton finally opened his mouth. The wielder of Angel's Vina, Layla Alden. King Bredia felt a chill running through his spine. He had heard about the legend of Layla Alden but never thought he would see her in real life. Finally, a small sliver of hope emerged in his heart. Ignoring all the shocked faces, Layla walked straight towards. She knelt on one knee beside Catherine. The princess' rosy smooth skin had completely turned purplish. Her body wasn't twitching as it was a few moments before. Layla placed her hand on Catherine's forehead and closed her eyes. Please save her," Andrew mumbled while sobbing like a little child. This is too stupid, overdramatic, and illogical," Michael thought inside. It was not as he would have married her on the spot. He had everything figured out. He would have rejected the king's offer to marry the princess, and then the king would have been forced to either postpone Catherine's wedding or choose Andrew, the second finalist, as the groom. It would have worked out if it wasn't for Andrew and his group's little idiotic scheme. While Michael was thinking how stupid they were, Layla opened her eyes. She took one of the deadliest poisons in this world, the venom of a 5-headed serpent. Layla sighed. "That's problematic." The king and Andrews turned their gazes towards Ashton to see him also sighing. "Problematic is too weak a word. She's at the death's door." "No shit," Michael chuckled inside, but as she heard his mind voice, she gave him a death stare. Michael just winked at her as she quickly turned her gaze away from him. You can save her, right? Andrew's voice was breaking up in overwhelming sadness. He could barely utter these words through the lumped throat. She took the venom of the female five-headed serpent. I can keep the poison from killing her for an hour maximum. If you want to save her, you need to find a male five-headed serpent, get its venom, make an antidote and give it to her. All within the hour of time. Guards! The king shouted for the royal guards. They still couldn't pick themselves from the ground or fight the dizziness after being hit by Layla. Take everything you need and bring me a male five-headed serpent. The king shouted the order. It's not that simple. King Bredia. Calvin shook his head. He didn't feel pity but pretended to be sad. Michael could see through Calvin's facade. Calvin might have put on a grieving face. Inside, he couldn't care less about what happened to the princess. Five-headed serpent is a rare creature which can only be found in the deepest pits of the fire realm. Even if someone goes the fire realm within an hour by some luck, finding it and killing it within an hour is impossible. Just as King Bredia would shout at Calvin for being negative, Ashton also sighed. He is right. It's impossible. I don't care if I have to send an entire Bredian army to the fire realm. I will not let my daughter die here. King Bredia held Catherine's close to his chest. Even if you find everything in an hour, brewing the antidote would take longer than an hour, Layla said. Andrew and King Bredia felt their hopes die within them when they heard Layla. She was the best healer in the world, yet even she didn't seem like she could save Catherine. No, Catherine. You can't leave me. You all I have left in this world, the king cried. Many commoners couldn't help shedding tears looking at the scene. It was a tragedy and everyone felt sad. Unless you have me. Suddenly they heard Ghost's voice as everyone turned to look at him. Michael smiled, flicking his wrist as a chair appeared on the battle stage before him. He sat on the chair backward and looked at the king, Andrew, Layla, and the Winstons. Sitting in front of the king without asking his permission was a crime in Bredia. It was a sign of disrespect towards the king. Thus, the king could imprison Ghost if he wanted to. However, Michael knew when to back off and when to show his claws. The king would do anything for his daughter. At this moment, Bredia wasn't the king, it was Ghost. How far will you go to save your daughter, your majesty? He asked the king with a smile. What do you mean? The king was confused. Let me rephrase my question. Sitting on the chair, he flicked his vest once again. The very next moment, a glistening silver vial appeared in his hand. Looking at the vial, Layla opened her mouth, decided not to speak anything, and closed her mouth. A long time ago, Ethan and Diana found a five-headed serpent poison antidote in a ruin. They could tell that the vial in their son's hand is several times purer than the antidote they saw. There was no doubt in their minds that the vial in Ghost's hand could save the prince's life. If it was Noah, they knew he would have given the vial no matter how priceless it was to the princess to save her life. Ghost's smile on his face made them doubt he would give the vial without getting something in return. What price would you pay for this? The antidote that can save your daughter's life. That's how it... The king mumbled as Andrew stared at the antidote without batting an eye. He was speechless. Wow, that's really the antidote. Calvin's words brought King Bredia out of his confused state. Once again, the light of hope emerged in everyone's heart. Give me that. The king reached his hand out. Tisk tisk tisk. Michael shook his head. Are you telling me that the prince's life is worth nothing? Guards! The king's fury exploded within him. He shivered as he called for the royal guards. This time, they were only a few meters away from the battle stage. Suddenly, the vial cracked in Ghost's hands. The king and Andrew's hearts skipped a beat seeing the cracks forming in the vial. With a little bit more pressure, they knew the vial would crumble into pieces. No! Andrew shouted. I will give you everything. Please. Give her the antidote. Shut up, Andrew. You have nothing to give me. This is between me and His Majesty. Layla didn't even try to talk to Ghost. However, her heart was aching to see how heartless he was. He can't be my child's father, Layla said to herself. The hopes of changing him into a better person slowly began to die inside her. Despite what he did to her, She wanted to give him a chance for the sake of her child. She knew how hard it would be for a child to grow without both parents. She didn't want her child to feel that pain, but it seemed like her child would be better off without Ghost as the father. Michael knew nothing about what was going on inside Layla's mind. His gaze was on the king. "How could you play with your daughter's life again, your majesty? You know this vial is so delicate. What if it got destroyed when your royal guards come running to me with their heavy armor?" "What do you want?" King asked, gritting his teeth. Although he was burning with anger, he knew that his daughter's life was more important than his anger. The king was willing to pay any price to save his daughter. She's dying." Imelda couldn't keep her mouth shut anymore. "You're holding her life as a bargaining chip. How she began to stutter in anger. "Could you be so heartless?" "Me heartless?" Michael tilted his head. "Just a few minutes ago, Her Royal Highness tried to kill me. You all heard what she said to me. Still, I'm willing to give the antidote to her instead of keeping the antidote a secret. I almost died getting this. And you're calling me heartless." The entire arena knew he was holding the princess' life as a hostage. No one in the right mind would believe he's not a cold, heartless bastard. Yet he talked like a kind, generous person. Many people were looking at him with their mouths wide open. "Your Majesty, I only want you to keep your word. I want what's rightfully mine and a few other things. I don't want to make the princess' life cheap. It's not fair." Michael was having fun with the king. He couldn't care less about what others would think about him. The princess tried to kill him. The king stood there watching Catherine spew hurtful things. Andrew tried to take away what should have been his. Michael wanted everyone to pay the price. "Throne doesn't make you a king, power does." Michael snickered inside, looking at the helpless, desperate king in front of him. Any idea what Michael would ask from the king? Chapter 371. Everyone single one in the arena had their eyes on Michael. They were waiting for what he was going to ask the king. No one let out a sound. If someone dropped a pin right at this moment, it would make a loud sound. The arena was deadly silent. Michael stood up from the chair, put his hand behind his back, and took several steps towards the edge of the arena. "I don't give a damn about who wins this tournament. All I care about is the rewards. So as you promised, Your Majesty, I want the Bradford barony." No one gasped hearing his words as they did after his next words. "I want you to announce Bradford, the river town, and all the surrounding areas as an independent kingdom ruled by me and the Sunrise sect." Ashton knew Ghost is an opportunist and power-hungry young man, but when he heard Ghost just ask the king to make him a king, he felt goosebumps. Calvin, on the other hand, praised Ghost wholeheartedly. If King Bredia let go of Bradford, the river town and the surrounding areas as Ghost asked, it would certainly make Bredia weaker. However, the king had no choice unless he was willing to let Catherine die. Any weak kingdom was a prey to be hunted and merged into the Thusia Empire. Hence, Calvin supported Ghost's claims. "We have to do something, Peyton. Arrest him and make him give up the antidote," Zanali growled, looking at Ghost. As a guardian, Peyton wanted to stop Ghost from toying with the princess' life. Yet even without Peyton's complete realization, the seed of hatred towards Noah sprouted in her heart. One could not blame Peyton. She dedicated her life to Guardian Guild. Unlike other beauties, she had no boyfriend. She didn't have fun. She didn't host galas or balls. She only focused on serving the Guardian Guild. In return, she expected the guild to treat her fairly. When everyone thought Lucifer was just a run-of-the-mill psycho killing people at night, she was the one who suspected him to be a big threat. She put together the operation that led to the destruction of his base and almost caught him. Instead of her getting praises and the rewards she deserved for the work she did, Noah ended up leading the team. Moreover, the Alpha Guardian was talking about making Noah a Guardian captain instead of her. She was 14 years old when she started to work for the Guardian Guild. What she couldn't get in 14 years, Noah got that within a year. It was not fair, she thought. If we interfere, he might destroy the antidote. This is between him and the king. But Peyton. I said this is between him and the king. Her voice sounded colder as Zanali quickly closed her mouth. On the other hand, Claire and the elders were speechless. Claire wanted to stop Michael, Ask him to give the princess the vial first, and then negotiate with the king. Claire wasn't as hypocritical as the others. She very well knew the princess had no right to berate Ghost like she did. In the future, if he needed that antidote, he wouldn't have one. There was no need for him to give that vial for free. However, Claire pitied the king and Andrew. She wanted Ghost to first save the princess and then negotiate with the king. But she was also not as naive as she used to be. Her mind told her that if Ghost gave the king the antidote, there was no way the king would give him everything he asked. The king could even arrest him for negotiating with him. "She's dying." Elder Sandra tried to stand up, but was stopped by Elder Reiner. "Did you all forget that the princess tried to kill Ghost? If he was 1 second slow, it would be him lying on the stage," Elder Reiner said with his usual bright smile on his face. "Elder Reiner, we teach our disciples humanity, kindness, and forgiveness. What he's doing is against everything we stand for." Claire was in a conundrum hearing the conversation between Sandra and Reiner. Both of them seemed to be in the right. "Look at the king. He's not the king of Bredia anymore. He's just a desperate father. We should help him," Elder Sandra said. Elder Reiner yet again stopped her by holding her wrists. "Do you remember the times we went to meet King Bredia asking for a loan?" Elder Reiner's question brought back some bad memories. Claire especially gritted her teeth. The elders lost pity for the king after what Elder Reiner asked them. "Let me refresh your memories. The king of Bredia. His Majesty asked Claire to be his concubine. Do you want me to spill out what he really wanted?" The smile on Reiner's face disappeared. For the first time in their life, some of the disciples saw Elder Reiner looking cold. He was always a warm, kind, and witty person. "And do you want me to remind the times the king ordered us to accommodate a part of the Bredian army who harassed our female disciples and raped some of them?" Elder Reiner's words got colder and colder. He didn't give a damn about those girls. Those girls were traumatized for their life. 50 gold coins, that's what the king gave them. Kindness, humanity, and forgiveness is for only those who deserve it. Elder Sandra was out of words for a few moments. "We can't let the princess suffer for what her father did. She's innocent. She tried to kill Ghost because of love." Meanwhile, Michael was looking at the king's trembling. Each second passed by. The king's worry overshadowed his anger. A kingdom obviously can't survive without financial and military power. "After all, your Majesty won't feel good if someone else took away something you generously offered." Michael paused for a second, looked at the people staring at him with wide-open mouths, and continued, "I won't ask for much but 1/3 of the Bredian army and financial support for a full year until we get back on our feet." The king almost spurted out blood hearing his outrageous requests. Financial support he could provide as Bredia was a preposterous kingdom. However, giving up 1/3 of the army would weaken the military power. "I also want a peace treaty with your Majesty. We can't have some stupidly loyal general wage war against my kingdom, can we?" Some of the people of Bradford were worried about his request. They were worried that they would be led to poverty under the rule of a cruel, ruthless person like him. However, the people of Rivertown were incredibly joyful and excited. They knew their life was much better after Ghost joined the Sunrise sect. He wasn't even a ruler of the town yet. He did so many things that the king never bothered to. "I won't ask for anything else except for a little tour around your Majesty's treasury. Since I'm giving such a valuable item, I'm sure your Majesty would want me to take something else in return." "Her condition is worsening," Layla said, looking at Catherine's body twitching violently. "Ghost, please. I beg you. Give me the antidote," Andrew pleased. "I will. I'm just waiting for His Majesty to agree to everything I asked." "I will. Give me the antidote," King Bredia yelled, but Michael shook his head. "I want the official documents with your sign, your Majesty." "You bastard." The king couldn't keep his anger contained. "Relax, your Majesty. What if you throw me in jail after getting the antidote? It's better we go with official documents. Am I right, Calvin?" Michael turned to look at Calvin nod. "Of course, documents are better than just words of agreement." Meanwhile, Catherine's were violently twitching as purplish blood oozed out of her pores. The purplish blood painted her body purple. "Ghost, it will take time to draft documents. Can't you just take His Majesty's words? Ethan asked, trying to convince Ghost. He didn't want his son to make an enemy out of the king. Although he still couldn't believe how cruel and ruthless his son is, he didn't want Ghost to become an enemy of an entire kingdom. Calvin Michael turned his gaze away from Ethan to Calvin. How long will it take to draft the official documents for His Majesty to sign? If you desire, I can draft the documents in 15 minutes. Of course, Michael snickered inside. Earlier, when he signed the parchments related to the guild leader position, Calvin did not bring with filled parchment but just wrote the clauses in front of him. Thus, Michael knew Calvin could come up with documents before Catherine died. King Bredia, shall I start preparing the documents? Calvin asked. His inner corners of the eyebrows were angled up. He was really good at pretending to be sad. No, can't, the king mumbled under his breath. What Ghost asked was not something he could give up so easily. The nobles and the people would definitely cause a massive headache if he agreed to Ghost. It might even throw the kingdom into chaos. At first, he wanted to say, okay, get the antidote, save his daughter, and come up with something to prison Ghost. That way he could have said he want negotiate with a criminal. Chapter 372. You cruel bastard. The king growled. He felt utterly helpless. He wanted to rip the antidote out of his hands and hang him right in this instance. Kathy was right. You are a monster after everything that happened. The king had realized why Catherine chose to take her own life instead of marrying Ghost. Although King Bredia never wanted to marry Catherine to anyone except a warrior, he would rather marry Catherine to someone like Andrew than Ghost. The king could see the love, care, and grief in Andrew's eyes. It was pure love. The king blamed himself for not asking Catherine who she wants to marry. It was his anger and stubbornness that made his daughter drink poison. The smile that lingered on Ghost's face suddenly disappeared. He knelt on one knee before the king. Your Majesty, do you think I don't know what you asked in return for a loan my elders asked a year ago? His voice suddenly sounded colder. You tried to use their desperation to take sect leader Claire as your concubine. And we both know what concubine really means to a person like you, except for the elders of the Sunrise sect and a few nobles who were very close to the king. No one knew about the king's request. It was Jack who told Michael about the request. At that time, Michael didn't know he would meet the king in person and negotiate with him over the prince's dying body. Since Claire was an exceptional beauty, Michael knew it was natural for people like the king to court her. However, when the king tried to act innocent and called him a monster, he decided to let everyone know the king's actual innocence. The king was speechless. Something made the king shiver inside looking at Ghost's eyes. He felt like a beast looking directly into his soul, waiting to devour him alive. The king felt so weak before him. And should I remind you of the time you offered 50 fucking gold coins as a remuneration for the girls who were raped by your soldiers who stayed at the sect due to your order? Michael patted the king on the back before standing up. If you care about them so much, you should have found a way to punish him, but you're punishing an innocent girl. Imelda raised her voice before Andrew's. Innocent? Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, to all of their surprise, Michael burst into laughter. It was the princess who decided the price of 50 gold coins. 50 gold coins, not for each, but to all 8 girls. They were supposed to share the coins among themselves. Based on what? Who was raped worse? What the actual fuck? Many commoners gasped in shock. Those who felt pity for the princess and hated Ghost now seemed to see the princess in a new light. The princess decided a girl's innocence was with 7 or 8 gold coins. No one is innocent in this world. Everyone is a villain in someone's eyes. But Andrew mumbled, what? If the roles were reversed and the king had the antidote, do any of you think he would have offered it to me for free? He looked around the arena to see no one nodding. So why should I? Ghost, right at the moment, Calvin brought the documents. He handed over the parchments to Michael. Finally, Michael took away his gaze from the king to the contents of the parchments. He read the entire 10-page document in a minute. I don't have to prove anything to anyone here. It's your Majesty who has to prove your love. You can either sign this and save your daughter or watch her slowly die in your arms. The choice is yours. Michael threw the parchments towards the king. I assume you have 10 minutes to decide. Your Majesty, sign the damn thing. Andrew took the parchment from the ground before throwing it on the king's face. The king's hands shivered. On one hand, he had his flying daughter. On the other hand, he had something that would divide his kingdom and probably throw the kingdom in chaos. Your Majesty, this is no time for thinking. Please, sign them and save your daughter, Ethan said. With his shivering hand, the king finally signed the document. His heart was pounding against his chest. Ricky was feeling goosebumps along with the other disciples. It seemed like only yesterday he saw a full black-clothes youngster at the gates of Rivertown. Now the youngster was about to become a king of his own kingdom. He wished Daniel was here to witness this historic moment. Hail your Majesty, Ghost! Ricky couldn't hold back as he shouted as loud as he could. Hail your Majesty, Ghost! 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 Gradually, one by one, the people of Rivertown and the Sunrise sect disciples roared in unison. Ignoring the shouts, Michael reached his hand out as the parchments flew straight into his hands. He checked the documents for a few moments before nodding with a smile. Keep the end of your bargain. Layla reached out her hand. Of course, Michael threw the antidote to Layla. Kid, you became a king. Ashton was still in shock. He never expected the tournament would turn out to be like this. He rejected the princess to gain a kingdom of his own. Moreover, he had also gained 1/3 of the Bredian army to command. King Ghost, it does have a nice ring to it. While Clavin, Ghost, and Ashton were busy discussing the future, Layla gently poured the antidote into Catherine's mouth. The moment the antidote touched Catherine's lips, her body jerked. Soon, her body gradually started to lose the purplish color as her skin slowly turned rosy again. Kathy! The tears of joy poured out of both Andrew's and the king's eyes. Everyone was looking at the princess, waiting for her to open her eyes. Only Diana looked at her son, Ghost. Most people, including her own sister, were thinking of him as evil, but they failed to understand that if it wasn't for her son, the princess would have died. He saved her. Catherine. Andrew saw Catherine slowly open her eyes. She looked at Andrew and then the worried face of her father. Father, you brat. King Bredia embraced so tightly and close to his chest. Andrew couldn't wait to hug her, tell her how much he loves him and how much she just hurt him by trying to take her own life. Their union of love continued for a couple of minutes before Catherine saw Ghost reading a long parchment seriously, without even taking a look at her. Slowly, she started to wonder how they managed to save her. She was told it was nearly impossible for someone to save her after drinking the five-headed serpent's venom. Layla stood up as Andrew thanked her, holding her hand. Sabrina quickly came to stand by Layla's side. The Winstons surrounded her. Layla couldn't just chase them away. As a person who trained to fight evil, Layla developed a seventh sense that indicates her most evil being. Aside from evil beings, she could all sense darkness in someone's heart. When she first met Ghost, she sensed the darkness in his heart. However, she ignored it as everyone in the world had darkness in their hearts. Weirdly, except Noah. She didn't find any darkness in his heart. In the corner of her eyes, she noticed Diana Winston staring at her. Surprisingly, Layla felt a chill. You! Catherine gritted her teeth. It's okay, Catherine. Everything's fine. Andrew patted her shoulder. The king didn't mind Andrew. He had already decided to marry Catherine to the man she truly loves. Andrew. Hey, a princess, like nothing happened. Ghost smiled at Catherine. Catherine saw he was brimming in joy. His face was bright as someone lit a candle inside his head. The royal guards as well as her father stared at Ghost with their bodies shivering. Deep inside her father's eyes, she saw immense worry and anger. She could tell that something big had happened while she was unconscious. Father, what happened? Ghosty, everyone heard a childish voice as they saw the dragon land on Ghost's shoulder. It was not as big as before but shrunk its body to the size of a grown eagle. Claire sent off little Cindy to her mother before the final. Claire didn't want Cindy to see Ghost ruthlessly beat the hell out of Andrew. The little girl had seen enough blood and gore for her age, Claire thought. Following Nightmare, the elders and Claire came flying towards Michael. Since they all reached the core formation stage, they could fly without the help of flying swords. Except for Elder Reiner, who had a wide grin on his face. The others looked stunned. Michael could see the reluctance in their eyes. Master Ghost Ricky came to his side on a flying sword and landed beside him. "Oh, forgive me." He quickly knelt on one knee. "Your Majesty," Ashton chuckled lightly before patting Ghost on the shoulder. "You have a lot to deal with. But come by the manor in 3 days. We will hold a gala celebrating the marriage. You must come." "Of course, Lord Ashton." Lord Ashton immediately took off, disappearing into the skies. Chapter 373. The breezes climbed the mountain slopes until the air became cool enough to condense its vapor to drizzle. On the mountain top, the rocky peak, everything beneath seemed so small yet beautiful. Michael and Layla landed on this lonely mountain peak. Along with thunderclaps, the streams of lightning on the horizon indicated the coming heavy rain. Layla stood on the edge of the mountain peak, looking at the distant horizon. Michael remained silent, expecting Layla to speak whatever was in her mind. As though she was battling a war inside her, she opened her mouth, took a deep breath, and closed her mouth again. "I assume you don't bring me here for sightseeing," said Michael. "I need to tell you something." "No shit." Michael took several steps forward to join Layla on the edge of the mountain peak. Layla turned her head sideways to see his calm face. She just stared at his face for a couple of minutes before finally letting out a heavy breath. "I am pregnant with a spirit child of yours." Michael almost fell down from the mountain top. His calm face immediately took a 180 turn. His heart started to pound against his chest as he slowly remembered what happened inside the treacherous ocean. "System," Michael growled in his mind. "What?" "The system informed you that there is a chance of a spirit child forming inside her. The system made sure the spirit child won't inherit any of your characteristics and talents. The child will see the world in a few weeks." For the first time in a long time, Michael's mind went blank. Since the system told him there's only a tiny chance of a spirit child to form inside her, he subconsciously hoped there won't be a spirit child. Not at this moment, but he never wanted to be a father ever. Every time Gaia talked about having children, he always changed the topic or ignored her. The last thing he wanted was to have a kid and raise that kid in this fucked up world. Nonetheless, fate played another game in his life. "Layla, that's what happened between us was my fault." While Michael stuttered, Layla opened her mouth. "I know how hard it is to grow up without a father in this world." She turned her gaze back at the distant horizon. "The fate and my fault together forced you to be the father of my child. I want to give my child a family, Ghost. I really do." For the first time, Michael saw Layla's eyes tearing up in sadness. Even after he spirit walked her, she was furious but not sad. At least he didn't see her sad. "But you can't be my child's father, Ghost. Not after everything I've seen. I would rather raise my child alone than letting the child inherit the darkness inside you." "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" Michael lost his cool when he heard Layla. Although he was not perfect father material, he couldn't keep his mouth shut when he heard her talk about darkness. "You people are talking like I'm the only bad guy in this world." Michael had already punished this child by deciding to leave the child instead of being a father to it. He couldn't get himself to hurt the child anymore despite he knew the child might become a threat to him in the future. However, remember this, Layla. He turned back his gaze from the distant horizon to Layla. "Protect your child." Layla was threatened by the sound of his grave voice. "Protect from who?" "Me." Another thunderclap boomed just after he said, "Do not let your child be used against me. My enemies will stop at nothing, and so do I," Michael warned. Although he decided to spare the child, if the child tried to kill him in the future, Michael would end the child's life in a blink of an eye. Even if he didn't, Gaia definitely would. "Ghost, for the sake of our child, why can't you just leave everything behind you and come with me?" Although she already decided not to let Ghost be a part of the child's life, after hearing him, she tried to change him one last time, for the sake of their child. The tears drops mixed with water droplets rolled down on her rosy cheeks. "I can't, Layla. Even if I wanted to, I just can't." Like you said, it'll do more harm than good to the child if I'm around. While tears rushed out of her eyes without her control, she saw him walking towards her. He lifted her palm before placing a rather normal-looking chain with a coin-sized sun attached to it in her hand. Maybe if I didn't meet Ilya and fall in love with her, we might have ended up different instead of being like this. Layla saw a smile that hid the sorrow in his heart. He picked up the chain as she put it around her neck. She wanted to stop yet she simply couldn't. The child is lucky to have you as its mother. Layla, every single fiber in her body, wanted to embrace him despite how he made her feel before. All the anger, fury, and everything faded away from her heart in an instant. But before her heart could overpower her mind to make her embrace him, he took several steps back from her. Both of them looked into each other's eyes in silence for a couple of minutes. Then, Layla said, "I want something else from you, Ghost. This will be the last thing I would ask from you." Her voice was shaking in a mix of emotions. "Ask? I need your blood to give the child a physical body." That dash, her words were interrupted when she saw him unsheath his sword from his back. Without uttering a single word, he cut his palm with his razor-sharp sword. The thick dark blood oozed out of the large cut. A vial immediately appeared in his hand as the blood drizzled into the vial, rapidly filling it with his blood. The vial slowly floated towards her as he turned back. The blood was still gushing out from his hand. "Spoiled milk is still white, Layla. Everything you see and believe is not always right. Raise your child, showing it how this world really works, Layla." He looked over his shoulder to give her one last look. "Goodbye, Layla." As a strange emptiness and sorrow were filling up her heart, she looked at Ghost disappear into the dark clouds. He already had Gaia, Raylene, Sadie Kaplan, Arya, Maxine, Azazel, and Tiberius. After the tournament, he had more than enough points to completely heal Arya's two brothers. With them, he would have 9 subordinates. Michael was thinking of making Ricky and Daniel the remaining 2 subordinates. Although Ricky and Daniel were not as strong as most of his subordinates, they were loyal to the core and hardworking. From this point onwards, loyalty wasn't the only thing that mattered to Michael. He needed powerful subordinates who could fight his battles for him. In simple words, he wanted to be the final boss. Body refining stage level 10, Your Majesty. I feel like I can reach the body strengthening stage in a few months. Michael was glad to see Ricky telling him the truth. What about Daniel? Ricky sighed again. Poor guy is stuck at body refining stage level 8, Your Majesty. It was obvious to Michael Ricky and Daniel has no talent for cultivation at all. He had given them hundreds of thousands of gold coins worth the pills and potions. Still, they were stuck at the body refining stage. If it wasn't for the pills and potions, there was no doubt they wouldn't have reached the body refining stage. After we settle things in Bradford, come see me with Daniel. You two are too weak. We need to fix that. Ricky felt goosebumps all over. Everyone in the world loved power, and Ricky was not an exception. If anyone could turn Ricky and Daniel into geniuses, it was Ghost. As the rain showered them from heaven, they made their way to Bradford town where the Baron's manor was located. The people who didn't attend the tournament had no idea that their barony had become a kingdom of its own, and their new king is Ghost of Rivertown. Through the window, Michael saw the city wall in the distance. Nightmare curled on his lap, sleeping peacefully. Ricky saw a bunch of archers standing atop the city walls. Regardless of the heavy rain, they were patrolling on the wall's top. In front of the main gate of the city, a couple of armored guards remained outside. Since the carriages had the flag of sunrise set on top, the armored guards didn't dare try to be arrogant as they waited for Ricky to slow down the carriage. Open the gates. Ricky's voice and demeanor were not of a meek kid anymore. He sounded as though he was ordering the armored guards to open the gates. The armored guards wore helmets covering their faces. Thus, Ricky couldn't see the annoyed expression that appeared on their faces. Michael was waiting patiently for Ricky to deal with the guards. He didn't mind how Ricky sounded. As far as he was concerned, his subordinates should not be spineless cowards. The Baron has ordered us not to let anyone inside or outside. one of the 5 armored guards said in a grumpy voice. Why? Ricky frowned. The Guardians and the Baron are conducting an investigation. It's our order not to let anyone in or out. Unless Baron gives us an order to let you guys in, we can't do anything. Another guard spoke, but he wasn't as grumpy as the guard who talked just a moment ago. Do you know who is inside the carriage? Ricky had the courage to talk to the armored guards with his chest up because of Ghost. He was not the gate guard Ricky anymore. He was the right-hand man of the king himself. Soon these guards would bow their heads to him. Who? The grumpy guard couldn't take any more of Ricky's arrogant attitude. Your king. Chapter 375. The armored guards, as well as the archers who heard Ricky, were stunned. They were speechless for a couple of moments. They lived long enough to know that the king of Bredia wouldn't come without royal guards and several carriages in front and back. Besides, they received no information about the king coming to Bradford. The last time they heard, the king was going to the tournament. Here, show this to them. Through the gap between Ricky and him, Michael sent the parchment containing King Bredia's seal to Ricky. Michael didn't want to cause any acne by beating the crap out of the gate guards. After all, they were just doing their jobs. Although Michael knew they were just doing their job, he felt the urge to beat them when they were standing in his way. He could feel something is changing inside him. It was a feeling that couldn't be described. Even Spectre and the hitmen of the dark underworld massacred the orphanage Michael loved. Michael didn't torture them. He just killed every single one of them, including the girl he loved who did not inform him about Spectre's plan. Never before he experienced the urge to torture except when he met Calvin. He wanted to torture everyone who betrayed Abras. He wanted to cause chaos. He asked the system about his new feelings, but the system had no answers. Yet, Michael could feel something different about him. The guards saw the young man taking a parchment from whoever was inside the carriage. Since the tournament winner celebration was meant to be held tomorrow, they never thought Ghost or any participants would come to Bradford. As far as they were concerned, the 2 carriages that have the flag of the Sunrise sect were occupied by the guests of the sect. Ricky jumped down from the carriage while keeping the parchment under his fur coat to prevent the rain from drenching it. Who knows how to read? Ricky asked as the guards looked at each other. Finally, an archer from the wall slid down from the ladder to come to them. Among the 12 guards in the vicinity, only one seemed to know how to read. Ricky wasn't surprised, though. It was not a requirement for a soldier to know how to read or write. Education was for the nobles and the rich. If it wasn't for Ghost's strict order to learn how to read or write, Ricky would have been just like them, illiterate. Here, Ricky handed over the parchment to the archer. The armored guards were staring at the archer and the parchment in his hand. They might be illiterate, but they could tell the parchment definitely came from a royal or noble. Seeing the quality of the parchment, the archer opened the parchment carefully to read the content. There weren't even minutes passed by when the archer's hands shivered as his eyes wide opened, as though they were about to pop out from their sockets. What is it? The other guards asked. Instead of answering, the archer swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Bradford has become a kingdom. The archer's voice trembled. And, the archer stuttered. What? The other armored guards asked the archer after a few moments of silence. Only the sound of heavy downpour filled the area. The soldiers couldn't believe the archer. Ricky couldn't see the expressions on their faces, but he could guess they were completely stunned using the silence. Our new king, the archer kept stammering. All the soldiers had to wait for the archer to utter the name of their new king, is Ghost of River Town, as though the skies were waiting for the archer to utter these words. The moment he said the name, the thunderclaps reverberated through the city. What you are holding is the king's decree and in one of your new king's hands. My first order to is open the damn gates for your king. His Majesty Ghost. The armored guards looked at each other. Open the gates, the archer said. His look on Ricky completely changed. Each soldier had several questions running in their mind. The soldiers slowly opened the giant wooden gates to reveal the town of Bradford. With a swift jump, Ricky landed back on the carriage. After spending time as Ghost's subordinate, Ricky picked some of Ghost's attitudes. He even started to wear full black clothes like Ghost. As the carriage slowly moved forward, Michael looked at the town through the window. The streets were empty as Michael saw not a single soul on the roads. However, he could see the eyes looking at the carriage from inside the building. When Michael looked at the sky above the town, he noticed several figures in complete golden armor flying away from the town. Holy guards, Michael mumbled under his breath. Although the church had not intervened in his life as much as the guardians, they were still a threat. He had been trying to establish a connection with the church to see if he could make them his ally. If they were his ally, he could spy on them, learn valuable information, and turn them against the guardians. The others, including Ricky, thought Michael had forgotten Jack since he doesn't talk about Jack or his death. In truth, Michael had never even visited Jack's grave. Not even once. Gaia took care of Jack's family. They were millionaires now as Gaia gave 1,000,000 gold coins to their family as well as promised to take care of them and their bloodline. The guardians would pay for Jack's death. Everyone involved in Jack's death would pay the price with their lives. It seems like the Baron and the guardians ordered a lockdown, Your Majesty. But why are there no guards on the streets? Ricky asked while looking around the town. Like most of the towns or cities in this world, Bradford was also divided into 3 parts. Commoners lived in the outer part of the town. This part also contained shops such as smithy, bakery, and miscellaneous stores. The middle part of the town had lesser nobles who were either declined noble families or branch families of main nobles' families and rich merchants. If one wanted to find a jewelry store or a bank, they should look for them in the middle part. Only the ruler, royal family, and prominent noble families lived in the center. It was the richest part of any town or city. Although the difference between the town parts was not as drastic as royal land or the capital of Bredia, Michael could see the buildings look majestic as they moved towards the center. The last time he visited Bradford, he wanted to open up a shop in Bradford. Unfortunately, Jane Totonk met him in the alchemy store in the middle part of the city. If she hadn't met him that day, she would have been alive. As the Pegasi galloped towards the center, Michael vaguely saw what might be the Baron's manor in the distance through the window. There were several guards in full plate armor patrolling the surrounding area. The structure, as well as the atmosphere of the manor, reminded Michael of Ham House in England. He wondered how this world has so many similarities with Earth. Inside the Baron's manor, Baron Totonk lay on his throne with a large ale bottle in his hand. There were several ale bottles lying around him. The walls of the throne hall were void of any paintings, but there were signs of paintings hung on the wall before. Only a group of fluffy armored soldiers, as well as an old man with a long gray beard, remained by the Baron's side. The old man had a wooden staff that had an orb of fire hovering atop. "Lord Totonk, what should we do with them?" the old man asked, looking at the 3 figures kneeling in the hall. All 3 figures had their hands tied and heads covered with brown sacks. The brown sacks were soaked in blood. "Our spies informed that their families have contacted the guardians and they are bringing them here. Did they tell you something?" Baron Totonk asked in a grumpy voice. His eyes were bloodshot. He reeked of alcohol and piss. The noble-looking Baron Totonk they served was nowhere to be found. After Jane's death, the Baron had become a new man. "Unfortunately, no, my lord. They seem to know nothing about Miss Jane's demise." Demise? It was a fucking murder. The Baron snickered before smashing the ale bottle on the throne. "I don't care if I have to burn this entire fucking barony to find who killed her." Baron Totonk clumsily walked towards the 3 nobles kneeling on the ground. "Lucifer, Goosifer, horse shit. It wasn't the devil who killed her. It was someone in this fucking barony. I can feel him. He's here somewhere." Lord Totonk, when he was about to fall down due to his drunk state, the old man tried to dash towards him to catch him. "I'm fine." The Baron raised his hand, stopping the old man in his path. Unlike my baby, tears began to roll out of the Baron's eyes. Seeing a grown man cry like a baby made the soldiers feel a heaviness in their hearts. The Baron may have gone crazy since Jane died, but the soldiers never left the Baron's side. The Baron was a good man. They never thought such tragedy would fall on him. Although Jane was a spoiled brat, she didn't deserve such gruesome death. Even the seasoned warriors felt nauseous seeing her mutilated body. Since these three doesn't know anything, the Baron stood a few inches away from the three nobles. They can go to hell. Baron immediately drew his dagger out as the nobles let out a muffled cry through the sack. Stop! Just as the Baron was about to send the dagger into the noble's neck, the manor door opened to reveal a young man. Who the fuck let you in? The Baron asked as the soldiers moved towards the Baron to put up a defensive formation. By the power of your new king, I'm ordering you to lower your weapon, huh? The soldiers and the old man was stunned after hearing the words coming out of the young man's mouth. Who are you, young man? The old man asked. He could see the courage in the young man's eyes. He lived long enough to tell that this kind of courage was only possible if someone powerful was behind this young man. In one of the hands of the king, His Majesty Ghost. He would have waited outside if it wasn't for Ghost and Claire taking a stroll around the manor to get to know the landscape more, as Ghost would live here after today. He's telling the truth. This is not barony anymore. It's Kingdom of Bradford. What rubbish are you blabbering? Give me that. The Baron pulled the parchment from the old mage's hands. Despite the hangover, the Baron could read the metallic black letters on the golden parchment. Ricky and the old mage both saw the veins on the Baron's forehead popping out. They could hear the sound of Baron's teeth grinding against each other. His body trembled as they sensed a cold, murderous aura filling the hall. So this is how they repay me and the Totonk legacy? The Baron said, crumbling the parchment. That bastard! Ricky wondered if the Baron was cursing the king or Ghost. Either way, Ricky knew the Baron would not leave peacefully. Not with his current state. There is nothing we can do, my lord. Compared to Ricky, the old man had so much life experience. He could tell for sure that the situation is going to escalate to another level. Although what King Bredia had done was ungrateful and borderline disrespectful, they could do nothing. After signing the parchment, even King Bredia had no power in Bradford anymore. Bradford belonged to no one but Ghost himself, as he is the king from today onwards. Oh, I disagree, Yanab. I can still do this. As he said, the Baron immediately dashed at Ricky. Unlike everyone in the room, Ricky was not very experienced in battle. His reflex and reaction time was way slower, as Ricky didn't even realize what just happened until he got lifted up by his neck. Ricky felt the grab around his neck getting tightened. He started to struggle to breathe. My lord Yanab. The old mage tried to stop the Baron but was stopped in his path by a death glare came for the Baron. Let him go, Baron. Suddenly a melodic voice reverberated through the throne hall. Although Ricky sighed in relief, he wanted the Baron to let him go so he could breathe. The Baron and everyone saw a girl with golden hair gracefully walking towards them. Her eyes contained a sliver of anger. Sect leader Claire, Yanab recognized the girl. It has been almost 2 years since Yanab has seen Claire. She didn't seem like the girl he saw 2 years ago. Let Ricky go before he comes here, Baron. Claire came to stand beside Ricky. She was more concerned about what would happen to the Baron and his men if Ghost saw this rather than being mad at the Baron for treating Ricky like this. You think I'm afraid of him? The Baron was obviously not thinking it clear due to his current state. Claire knew that. I'm telling you for your own sake, Baron. If you aren't afraid of him, you should be. Now let him go before this escalates any further. Did he kill my Jane? Still, the Baron hadn't let go of Ricky as Ricky's face started to turn purple. No, what are you talking about? We all know who killed her, whoosh. Just when the Baron was about to say something and Ricky was going to faint, a powerful gust of wind blasted away the Baron and Yanab. Claire heard the crackling noise of lightning bolts coming from behind. My lord! The soldiers immediately rushed towards the Baron to project him as well as help him stand on his feet. Ghost, Claire turned back to see Ghost standing in front of her. The golden lightning bolts danced around his right hand while his left hand had a sleeping nightmare. The 3 noble prisoners were wiggling on the ground. Their heads were covered. Hence they had no idea what just happened. They just felt a powerful gust of wind pushing them onto the ground face first. I want to send you with the respect you deserve, Baron Totonk. Don't make it difficult for you. Take a walk and calm yourself down. Claire couldn't help signing in relief. She almost thought Ghost was going to massacre everyone. Recently, he was becoming very unpredictable, as though he was a ticking time bomb. There were 12 people in the hall excluding Claire, Ricky, and Ghost himself. Baron Totonk was at the core formation stage level 3, while the old mage was at core strengthening stage level 3. The rest of the guards were only at core formation stage level 6. If Michael wanted, he could kill every single one of them, including the old mage. Honestly, he wanted to kill them, he wanted to massacre them. He was resisting killing them with every fiber in his body. Take them away, sect leader Claire. Michael doubted he would be able to stop himself from killing them. System. What the hell is wrong with me? Michael asked the system before turning back to leave the throne hall. System level is too low to answer the host's question. Please upgrade the system level. So something is wrong with me? Fuck. Michael cussed inside as he walked towards the door to leave the throne hall. He could feel the bloodthirstiness increasing inside him at a monstrous speed. At this rate, he would really be the Dark Lord everyone was so afraid of. Stop! Claire saw Baron Totonk screaming as loud as he could. His eyes were bloodshot red. It was obvious the Baron was furious. Regardless of the Baron's scream, Michael didn't hear him. He was too focused on controlling himself from massacring everyone. He continued to walk away when Claire saw a ball of purplish fire appear before the Baron's hand. Don't! Claire was too late as the Baron threw the fireball at Ghost. It was not a powerful spell, just a miscellaneous spell used to chase away low-level beasts. The spell was quick to cast as well as it was a chantless spell. The fireball soared through the air like an arrow. Just as it was about to hit Michael, a light blue translucent shield appeared around him. The fireball disappeared when it hit the shield. Claire's heart skipped a beat when she saw Ghost halt his steps. He slowly turned back as she saw the veins on his face popping up. He was literally shaking, and Claire had never seen Ghost shiver in anger. Ghost! Claire approached him cautiously because something didn't feel right to her. Do not test me. Chapter 377. The words that came out of Michael's mouth sounded unearthly. It sent a chill running through Claire's spine. A wave of fear hit the core of the armored soldiers. Unconsciously, they took a step back. Michael was on the verge of going berserk on them. Every being in his body wanted to slaughter them mercilessly. Did you hurt my Jane? Baron Totonk grumbled. You know what? Michael was tired of people accusing him with no evidence. Although he ordered Gaia to kill Jane, there was no evidence that tied the murder to him. He knew even if he hadn't done anything to Jane, these people would have accused him anyway. Everyone stared at Michael's face to see what he was going to tell. He took a few steps forward as Claire's heartbeat continued to rise. I don't give a... He breathed between every word. He was battling with himself to block the thrust for chaos. Arg! Suddenly Michael growled in pain. He lowered his head as he placed Nightmare on the ground. Yawnon, the little dragon, slowly opened his eyes while yawning. Claire and Ricky saw the side of his face while the Baron and his men could only see the top of his head. They could vaguely hear him mumble something under his breath. Give what? The Baron asked, gritting his teeth. His grief and booze he drank made him lose all the reasons. Give a fuck about what happened to that bitch. His words stunned the Baron. It took the Baron a couple of seconds to sink in what he just said. Michael's voice became more animalistic. It was unearthly. When the words finally reached the Baron's head, he stomped the ground in anger. Shit, something's wrong with Ghosty. Abruptly, the door to the throne hall closed with a loud bang. After the door closed, suddenly the curtains covering the windows also began violently fluttering in the wind. The wind was so powerful that it forced Nightmare and Claire to step backward. Claire wasn't worried about Ghost, but worried about the soldiers and the Baron. Regardless of the sudden darkness that enveloped the throne hall, she walked towards Ghost to calm him down. Claire, let's go. As she walked closer to Ghost, she heard his words. The violent wind somewhat calmed down. Noticing he addressed Claire with no title, she knew something was wrong. She wanted to take him away from the soldiers and the Baron. His voice sounded normal rather than animalistic as before. "Ricky, we are leaving." Claire ignored the Baron. Ordering Ricky to leave the throne hall before Ghost did something that everyone would regret later. She even doubted they would be alive to regret their decision to mess with him. "I'm gonna rip that tongue-out bastard." Baron Totonk trembled in anger before leaping into the air. A gigantic war hammer plated silver materialized in the Baron's hands in the mid-air. Moon Wave. Claire stomped the ground, turning back. She pointed her finger at the Baron as a sparkling crescent-shaped wave shot out of her fingers. They dashed at Michael from both sides. Michael grabbed the sword in one soldier's hand while grabbing the bulkier soldier by his neck. Before the two of them could wiggle, Michael simply snapped the bulkier soldier's neck. The bulkier soldier collapsed onto the floor with a thud sound. The soldier struggled to release the sword from Ghost's hand, yet he couldn't even move his sword an inch. The other soldiers wanted to join the fight, but they couldn't leave the Baron unprotected. Hence, they saw Ghost pull the sword from their college's hand like taking candy from a child's hand. Cling! As Michael took the sword, he snapped the sword in half. Pulch! 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 The soldier tried to dash backward, but he was too late. Michael plunged the broken arrow directly into the soldier's shoulder through the metal armor. Without showing a shred of mercy, Michael kept rapidly stabbing the soldier until the soldier's lifeless body fell onto the ground. However, his brutality didn't stop at that. He stomped the soldier on the chest, crushing his chest. Death and chaos, TSK. TSK. So beautiful. Yesterday I wanted to release 2 chapters, but this chapter wasn't up to the usual standards. So I deleted the entire chapter and rewritten it so the chapter will be worth your time and money. Sorry for not keeping my word. They were innocents and they did not deserve such brutal death. I will let them go. The soldiers couldn't help sighing in relief. For a moment they really thought the dragon saved them all. However, when they heard his next words, they were horrified to hell. The lightning bolts gradually disappeared as the dark crimson-red flame coiled around his arms. They moved around his arms as though they were tiny snakes. Nightmare noticed he was casting spells without uttering the name of the spells. Until one reaches the fusion stage, they wouldn't be able to perform chantless spells, yet he was using spells without casting them. Moreover, the lightning bolts and now the flame seemed like they were being manipulated to his will instead of the cast using arch energy. If someone from the Sky Hall saw Michael, they would be speechless. No one in the world except some higher-ups knew about the existence of ancient gods. Elemental manipulation was the power wielded by the ancient god themselves. No mortal could even grasp the basics of elemental manipulations, yet Ghost controlled 2 elements: lightning and fire. Go! We will buy you as much time as we can. The 2 brave soldiers knew they couldn't stop him, yet the oath they took to protect the Baron gave them the courage to face Ghost. The one who was at the fault was the Baron himself. If it wasn't for him picking up the fight with Ghost, those soldiers and Yanab would have still been alive. For the Baron! For the Baron! The 2 soldiers dashed at Michael, letting out a loud battle cry. Nightmare flapped his wing to dash at Michael before he could kill the 2 soldiers. The dragon wanted to save Ghost from himself. The Ghost he knew would have never killed them. He was cunning and calculating. However, at the moment he seemed like a new person. Even when he was in his Lucifer persona, Nightmare had never seen him lose his cool. He always remained level-headed. More than ever, he missed Gaia now. If anyone could stop Ghost, it was Gaia. Get her out of here. Nightmare flew at Michael after instructing Ricky to get Claire out of the throne hall. Ghost! Nightmare was flying towards him. The soldiers were dashing at Michael. The soldiers were escorting the Baron towards the door, and Ricky was taking Claire away from Ghost. Everything seemed like it was happening in slow motion to Michael. He never felt this strong before. Those soldiers and everyone in the room seemed so puny. Feel like barbecue. as Michael grinned. He raised his arms as two scorching hot streams of fire shot from both his hands. Arg! The fire enveloped the two soldiers. Their screams of agony echoed through the manor's walls, but soon, their cries disappeared. In the place they stood before remained nothing but a pile of hot ashes and two scorched skulls. "Ghost!" Nightmare cried. Just as the dragon was about to reach him, he turned his gaze to look at Nightmare. Seeing the crimson red eyes staring at him, Nightmare felt a chill. The words uttered by Ghost shifted the blame and anger from Lucifer to himself. Imagine how she would have cried for her daddy when the life was leaving her. She would have prayed for you, prayed for her father to come and save her. Baron felt a gust of wind as he looked up to see the glowing red eyes of Ghost staring directly in his eyes. "You failed her. You failed your baby girl. You let her suffer. You let her go through that pain and agony. You killed her." The words were doing something inside the Baron. He couldn't take it anymore. The Baron wanted nothing but Ghost to stop. It felt like these words torturing his soul itself. He couldn't help imagining Jane crying for him to save her. "Take this and take your pathetic life. At least you will get a chance to say sorry for failing her." The Baron felt Ghost placing the dagger in his hand. "Jane," the Baron mumbled as he gripped the dagger tighter. "Don't make her wait this time, Pulch." As the darkness faded away from the hall, several lifeless bodies could be seen lying on the hall. One of the bodies was the Baron with a long deep cut around his neck. Chapter 379 Crime Investigation. When the heavy rain finally slowed down to a drizzle, two figures landed on the front lawn of the Baron's manor in Bradford. As they descended on the ground, they were welcomed by a bunch of guards in both full metal armor and leather armor. Archers were atop the manor looking at the surrounding cautiously, while several groups of soldiers patrolled the manor around. There was red tape surrounding the manor with commoners staring at the manor from behind the tape. The soldiers were struggling to keep the commoners from crossing the line. Regardless of the dark clouds hovering in the sky above them, the people didn't seem like they would leave the manor. The soldiers didn't dare to stop the two figures because they all knew who they were. Guardians. The two figures who came were none other than Peyton and Zanali. "What's going on here?" Zanali asked Peyton, looking at the tensed faces of the soldiers. Zanali expected the people of Bradford to be in shock, but they looked more terrified than shocked. "You will know soon," Peyton simply said instead of explaining. The two of them walked towards the manor's main door. Some of the soldiers who saw the Guardian crest on Peyton and Zanali's clothes heaved a sigh of relief. Along the way, the soldiers who were patrolling the manor halted their steps to bow. Giving them a simple nod, Peyton and Zanali made their way towards the manor. The two soldiers standing near the door quickly opened up the door without a question when they saw the Guardian crest on their chests. As the door slowly opened, they saw a couple of holy guards talking to a young man. Peyton had seen the dark-haired young man before at the arena. He dressed in full black like Ghost, but he was far cry from Ghost. Peyton knew who he was. He was one of the Ghost's lackeys, Ricky Cruz. Born and raised in a poor family, joined the military of Bredia when he was 16 years old after his father retired from the post of gate guard. His life turned upside down when he met Ghost. At the moment, Ricky's monthly wage was far greater than any soldier on the continent. Within a year, Ricky brought his family from a small village in Bredia to the residential area of the Sunrise Sect. Ghost was transforming the Sunrise Sect mountain range into his own mini-kingdom. They were creating several zones in the mountain range. The main mountain had constructions related to the sect and academic purposes. According to Peyton's New Dawn team, the second zone was supposed to be a residential area. Another rumor she heard about Ghost as he was searching for elven architects to work with dwarves to transform the mountain range without destroying the forests and wildlife in the mountain range. His love for nature always made Peyton really wonder about his personality. He never seemed like a person who would care for Mother Nature. However, he was an alchemist and the owner of the largest herbal garden in Bredia. Hence, his love for nature somewhat made sense. Taking her glance away from Ricky, Peyton saw several horribly mutilated bodies lay on the ground. The entire hall reeked of blood and arch energy. "Miss Peyton." Suddenly Peyton heard a calming voice from behind. She turned back to see Ghost walking towards her with a welcoming smile on his face. "I wish we had met under a different circumstance." She nodded as he turned his gaze towards Zanali. Miss Zanali gave him a cold nod, but he didn't seem like he cared. "What happened here, Ghost? Or should I call you King Ghost?" Zanali noticed the smile on Peyton's face. It was peculiar as she thought Peyton hated Ghost to the core. "Nah, I prefer you call me Ghost as long as I don't have to call you Guardian Peyton." Too tongue-twisty, Ghost chuckled as Peyton nodded. "What happened here?" The smile on Ghost's face disappeared as he sighed after hearing Peyton's question. "Follow me, it's better if I showed you." Peyton and Zanali followed him behind to the east side of the throne hall. The shadows of pillars and the curtains darkened the floor beneath. The closer they got, they saw a body lying on the ground. Compared to the rest of the bodies, the body before them was intact. "That's Baron Totonk." Zanali was stunned. She looked at the deep cut around his neck before turning her gaze back at Peyton. Peyton, however, didn't look as shocked as her. She just adjusted her square spectacles, taking a closer look at the dagger in the Baron's hand. "The Holy Guards are still doing the investigation, but it seems like the Baron took his life with that dagger after going mad on the poor soldiers, based on the cut and the Baron's body position." Peyton agreed with Ghost on the fact he took his own life. "The Holy Guards took the Baron's warhammer. Some soldiers were beaten to death with the hammer, at least it looks that way." Ghost sighed as he continued. "The soldiers' family have to conduct a closed casket funeral. I will make sure their families get what they deserve and more." Peyton nodded. "I saw 2 piles of ashes with skulls. I don't think the Baron was powerful enough to cast a spell that powerful. I heard the personal guards of the Baron were at core formation level 6. The Baron was weaker than them and not a mage." "Follow me." Yet again, Zanali followed Ghost behind. They were walking towards the throne where Zanali saw a holy guard in full white metal armor standing beside. Noticing the guardians approaching, the holy guard walked away from the body. As the holy guard moved away from the body, Zanali saw the complete body, or what was left of it. In the place where the head should have been, Zanali saw brain matter, skull pieces, and blood. She felt nauseous just by looking at it. She thought Gaia's killing was brutal, but what happened inside the throne hall was on another level compared to the killings of Gaia.